I gotta say, Vish, I still think that the Goshida intro is my favorite.
Gojira is actually the best one. It is the superior choice.
It
Hands down.
just kind of slays like every goddamn time. So, hi, how you doing?
Well, after complaining for 2 straight weeks about how chilly and gray it was here in Southern California, it looks like we accidentally conjured the heat. So it's in the mid to upper 80s today, and everyone's upset about it. So just the typical LA area phenomenon. We complain about the May gray, and then the sun comes out and it gets hot, and we complain about the heat. So just... Awesome. That's okay, because I made iced coffee, so we're all right.
Yay! Yeah. That's good. That's important. Hey, are you posting as me in the chat? That's fun.
No. Yes. It's just one of those glitches about StreamYard that it has me logged in as you. I don't know why. I've tried to fix it. Whatever. I use my powers for good. But hey, in the words of our dear David Lynch, and if you can believe it, it's a Friday once again.
It is Friday. And some of you lucky people are already finished work and on your weekend. Congratulations on that. Yeah. It's Friday the 9th of May. It's mortgage day. Today's the day that my mortgage payment comes out, which usually makes me sad. But it is what it is. You gotta pay the mortgage. So, but it's a lovely day here. It's a little cooler. It was warmer earlier in the week. I'm kind of recovering from something. I don't know what. I've had some stomach issues lately, and I fell down the stairs last night when I was on my way to bed. But I'm okay, everyone. My neck's a little
You're
sore.
already taking falls.
Already taking falls. It's true. So, but I'm happy to see everyone here. It's good to see Nitty. Nitty and I did was that Saturday already? On Saturday night, Vish, we did another Nitty, late night.
Yeah,
stream.
giving us the Juggalo greeting.
There you go. Triceratops is here. Stardust Lilith, who has promised to show me pictures of her new puppy named. Do you know what the dog's name is, Vishanti? Can you guess?
Is it named Kip?
It's named Kip. She actually said she would name it Dr. Kip.
Oh my gosh.
Which is very sweet. Good to see Holly on Biblical, the Egyptian hegemony hawk here, as always. Vadim. Can I call you Vadim? Let's go with that. It's good to see him here. And cuneiform guy is here. How about the angel of the Lord? Could that be Jesus?
No.
We'll find out, right? We gotta find out. We'll figure this out, right? Pat, it's always good to see you. And Andrew, very nice. There's a bunch of you guys here. So
math jokes, geometry jokes.
Oh, I missed it. The Lord is obtuse. There we go. I wasn't looking at
it. Because the angle of the Lord, it's obtuse, not acute.
Angle of the Lord. Very nice. It's not isosceles. That's one, isn't it? Is that a no. It's not acute.
That's a type of triangle, not an angle.
Type of triangle. Acute. There's two types of angles, right? There's obtuse and acute.
Obtuse and acute.
And right.
Correct.
Okay. Very nice. Nicely done, Andrew. Misinterpretations is here. I still haven't checked my messages, but I'll try to remember to do that after we finish streaming. Reconstructed Bible is here. It's good to see you. Shalom, Brandon. Equus is currently listening at work. Don't get fired. And yeah, it's good. Prixie, Solus Dyslexic Purple.
Triceratops
here. So I saw a Triceratops one. Oh, Puppy Kip. That's right.
Yeah. Also,
Silvas is here. She was very. Oh yeah. If I get in,
Ashalot. I'm definitely naming it Kip, but you should name it Vishanti because Ashalot is my mount. I ride one every week
wow.
on Dapper Dinosaur's channel.
I don't know what an Ashalot is.
Yeah, you do. It's that little pink, cute, frilly salamander thing.
Oh, that guy. Yeah. I know him.
I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's not
Thank
pronounced
you.
axolotl.
Very nice.
That is Nahuatl. It's Ashalot or Ajalote, if you want to use the Spanish.
Oh, yeah. That sounds better, actually. So,
Ajolote.
Exit Music,
And they're
good
cute.
to see you. They are. Gamer Time is here. Probably see you on Toasta. Oh, I was going to ask if Toast to Toast is on tonight. Is it on tonight? So, because I hope
I don't
so.
think so, but I'll check real quick.
Check.
I'll ask Paul and Dave.
Is the Saturday stream a for sure thing now? Yes, but not every Saturday. I just don't think I can do it every Saturday, but maybe twice, maybe every second Saturday. So maybe not this Saturday, but the Saturday after that. So yeah, keep your eyes open for that. I'm hoping that Apologia is streaming tonight. Where the hell are you, Paul? Usually you're here for these sorts of things too.
Ajolote.
Ajolote.
Sí, es la palabra correcta.
Very nice.
Correcto?
But I'm sure hoping Paul is streaming tonight, because if not, then I probably will end up scraping the bottom of the barrel, as I often do when I can't find anything to do on a Friday night, and watch
we can watch spooky movies.
Oh, we could do that.
Duh, we have
that
a
would
huge
help
queue.
Me. We do have a huge queue now that especially now that we've finished Severance. We can move on to some other things. So, but that would help. So I'm still
you
just
still haven't watched
so
the
everyone
Creep
knows.
Tapes with us.
Oh no, we need to do that.
Because Creep 1 and 2 we watched, but there's a whole series of little 20-minute vignettes, I guess. They're great.
Which sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Yes. Okay. So all that to say, my Friday night is still open. So, but we're here now, and we are here to talk about the angel of the Lord, the angel of Yahweh. And why are we talking about the angel of Yahweh on this fine day? Well, it's gotten an awful lot of attention more recently because Alex O'Connor had a debate with psychopath Christian apologist David Wood at the God Bless Summit last month on the question of whether or not Jesus claimed to be God. Oh, by the way, did everyone see my t-shirt? Finally
lean to your right. Slide to your right. There you go.
Look at that, eh?
Ghost. Nice fit check.
The back slays. It's super
Pixar
cool.
didn't happen. But turn around and show us. Give us a twirl.
Do you need to see it? All right.
Well, we're not just gonna take your word for it.
You're not just gonna.
You're sitting down, bro.
I have to stand up to do that, right?
Oh, cool.
So, can you see that?
Nice.
Isn't that cool?
That is a very cool design.
I know, right? So, this was the Spotify special that they promoted way the hell back in January, and I saw it and I said, "Oh my God, I must have that," and paid a small fortune for it. And they said that they weren't even shipping until like 25th of April when the album dropped. So I have been waiting for this for some time. But yes, purple, right? Archival blob, purple.
Very cool.
That's all you need to know. And no, that's very true, Vadim. It's not Saturday at Dapper's yet. So, but y'all know those.
I still have it.
those I have said this. I believe I said this the last time I was on Bad Science Sunday. Those sobriety tests that the dinosaur has me perform are rigged. They're not.
They rigged.
I
You're the one that was drinking.
look, Vish. I fell down the stairs last night.
You just
And
turned
I'm
52 and you're already
I'm a
drinking, dude.
50-something-year-old man. I think I've got some balance issues to begin with. And so
Yeah,
now,
I
you know
mean,
what?
you might wanna
I need to do,
get that
I
checked.
think I need to do a baseline check before I ever
Okay.
do another sobriety check on Dapper's channel, because I'm pretty sure I would fall down under the best of circumstances. Can you say your ABCs backwards sober? No. Who can do that? I
Lots of
would have
people
to.
can.
I can't. So, you know, that's.
Oh,
I could do
yeah,
this
the
one,
chat, a couple
right?
people are giving me the correct suffix to the verb, or the noun that I was doing. ¿Es la palabra correcta? I honestly olvido muchos de mis palabras, necesito practicar. I can only really speak in present tense and only sometimes in the past tense. I've forgotten so much of my Spanish, it's embarrassing, but it's coming back. I do a lot of genealogical work in Mexico, so all of the records are in Spanish, so it helps me. And also, I live in Southern California, so there's lots of native speakers that I get to listen to. So it's coming back, just
Very
slowly.
nice. Ben, I don't think I could do it with the Hebrew alphabet either, but I bet I would struggle less with the Hebrew alphabet than I would the
Really?
Latin. I think I might.
There's only
actually.
4 letters difference.
Yeah, but the last time I thought, I mean, I guess I have to think about the order of the alphabet every time. I am in the process of compiling a bibliography, so I guess I have to do that. And sometimes I make some embarrassing mistakes in my in my bibliography too, which just goes to show you how well I can do this shit, right? So I don't know. It's you know, it's
pero te oyes bastante bien. Thank you, Aldo. It's embarrassing because my mom's family is Mexican and Filipino. It's like 3/4 Mexican and 1/4 Filipino. So, you know, we should, in my mind, be more fluent. But I guess a lot of us are no Sabo kids, which is embarrassing, but whatever. Yeah.
All right. We got to press forward here, but before we do, Vish, Claude Simeon has sent $2 in with a proposal for you to join the Saturday debauchery.
What is this debaucherous?
It's so Nidhi and I are going to start doing a regular show called Budget Scripture Saturday. The premise is pretty simple. We're basically, all we're doing is ripping off Maya Adkisson. But it's okay because she approves. And the entire premise of the show is basically being up late at night on Saturday, drinking a fair bit, and then watching a video cold that Maya has selected for us to view. So it's usually bad shit about the Bible. But yeah,
there's
so I don't
much.
know if there's so much, right? Like she has told me that sometimes, like for some of her shows, it takes her like hours and hours to find videos for her guests. She's like, Bible, she's like, give me 80 seconds.
Oh yeah,
and
you'll never run out of stuff.
No, there's so much stupidity
By the way,
out there.
Hi Cheryl, very kind.
Hi Cheryl. Aw, wow, that is very, very kind. So but let's talk some more about this. There was this debate between David Wood and Alex O'Connor on whether or not Jesus claimed to be God. I don't particularly think there's a satisfying answer to that question at the outset. I think the evidence from the Gospels within the cultural milieu of early Judaism and Roman Palestine makes it a difficult question to answer, and in large part because I don't believe most people really grasp how nuanced that in itself can be, claiming to be God. Like, what exactly are we talking about within early
Nuance
Judaism?
in
There's
my
lots
Bible
of
discussion.
nuance here. So, but anyways, the tack, the approach that apologist David Wood took to making his argument was through the so-called two powers heresy, which is known from predominantly the Babylonian Talmud, but it almost certainly, can be traced to earlier periods in time. Alan Siegel, back in the 1970s, wrote a book called The Two Powers in Heaven, where he made a case that you can already see it in early Judaism. This is the idea that that there are two powers in heaven. There's a big Yahweh and a little Yahweh.
Yeah.
But which were always understood to be just the same God, the same deity. It's not that's yeah.
And then
But so
Metatron, who's Enoch, but also, yeah, the lore is deep.
but all of this stuff stems from like the religion of the period, early, Second Temple Judaism, which is playing with these ideas within like an expanding Hellenistic worldview of things, and then grappling with their own rather entrenched polytheistic past, right? So it's all of this stuff working together. But so David Wood made his case on the two powers idea, arguing that Jesus is himself riffing off of the well-worn, widely understood two powers theology in early Judaism, to make his case that he is in fact Yahweh. One of the features of his argument is this figure that appears with some frequency in the Old Testament, identified as the angel of Yahweh, the angel of the Lord. His argument made such a strong impression on a creator I had not heard of before 2 months ago, by the name of Glen Scrivener, who runs a channel called Speak Life. He's got a web page. It's a ministry in the UK. He's a UK guy. He wrote a book called The Air We Breathe. It seems like it's a fairly popular apologetics book. The running joke with him is that it seems that that this book that he has written has actually now been, Alex O'Connor has now received multiple copies of it from like many different people that he's encountered over the last couple of years. So, but this I watched Glen Scrivener's video that he made on the two powers, or sorry, on the angel of the Lord, and I kind of thought, this is something that I think people also have a poorly nuanced understanding of. You hear a lot of things about the mysteriousness of the angel of Yahweh in Scripture, and like for good reason, because a lot of the texts dealing with the angel of Yahweh are just they're kind of odd. So today we're going to talk about that. We're going to look at Glen's video, Glen from Speak Life. And I've got a bunch of notes. We could be here for a while. I mean, I will try to keep it as brief as I can, but I don't know.
9 hours.
So we'll see. Of course, one of the key problems, as always, with this question, as we will come to discover when approaching a topic like the angel of Yahweh in the Bible, is
univocal voice.
It's
Oh,
this
brother.
whole issue, right? What do we do with these multiple descriptions of this figure that come from these multiple different texts? Are we just going to flatten them into this singular understanding of this figure, as if everyone in the Bible is speaking with, as Sean McDonald,
univocal voice?
are we gonna try and let the individual authors of the text speak for themselves, speak on their own right? So, but I think we might as well just dive right into the video. Now, I wanted to, before we get into the video proper, the first clip I have, Vish, is something that Glen Scrivener also did a separate review video of the debate between Alex and David Wood. And there, I mean, I clipped a little bit from that because, like, I gotta say, he seems, I have some appreciation for this guy, for Glenn. So I wanted to start with that. That's going to be the first clip. But before we get to that, we will do questions.
Oop.
We'll do questions as we go through it, and certainly when we finish. So please get your questions in. Before we go, there is another super chat from Radim. He says, "I'm not drunk enough to talk about this. I beg to differ. I am as drunk as I'm going to be this afternoon. So this is
Which is to
is
say,
what we
not
do.
at all.
Not at all. No,
So there's a new
maybe
order.
later. So yeah.
Okay.
All right. So let's jump into this.
Okie dokie.
Clip number
Here
one.
we go.
And I'm very grateful for bringing these two great minds together. They are terrific debaters in their own right. And in a sense, I want to give the debate to Alex because I think he did as well as he could with a topic that he couldn't possibly win on. You might want to debate that Jesus claimed to be God and was mistaken. You might want to claim that people made up claims for divinity and put them in the mouth of Jesus. You might want to claim that all the New Testament documents are completely unreliable. But I don't think it's plausible to attempt to argue what Alex is arguing here. So well done for him trying it. And I think he did as good as he could, given that he took on the losing position from the outset. I'll get into why I think that in just a second. I'm actually going to do two videos on this. One video that's an overview of the debate, and then a second video that's going to take a little detour into a sidebar on the issue of the angel of the Lord, this figure from the Old Testament who is of God and is God, and forms some of the argument that David Wood brings to this debate. We begin with David Wood.
So I'd like to thank Alex for finally showing up. Oh, you got to give me some wiggle room on time, Ruslan.
Give the Dizzle some wiggle.
Or you can all quit cheering for Alex. All right. Well, I'd like to thank Alex for finally showing up. I was a month and a half late, but he finally showed up. I'm teasing, by the way.
Why would you open this way? This just comes across as petty.
Could it be because David Wood is a psychopathic asshole? I don't know. Could that be it?
I don't keep up with these people, but that's just my
Right.
initial read. Like, this is the first time that I'm running across them, and I'm not getting a good vibe here. So
By the way,
No.
people
It
have no
gets
clue
better.
how dangerous DebateCon is actually with the lineup they had and the number and the volume of death threats against multiple speakers. So, plus he lives in what is rapidly becoming the Sharia-compliant hellhole of the universe. So, good to take precautions. We don't want to lose.
oh, wait, what?
This is
Did
a
he
whole thing.
just...
Go on.
Okay. A, does he know what Sharia law even is? 2, no, it's not. 3, you're a bigot. What's
Yes.
his name? David? David Wood?
David
this
Wood.
guy
Yes.
sucks.
Yes, he is.
He sucks.
By the way, you know,
I've listened to
he's
what, less
not,
than a
he
minute?
is,
Oh, yeah, this guy sucks.
he is not allowed to enter the United Kingdom. You will be shocked to learn. I wonder
Really?
why.
But
Yes,
what?
it's true. He got his ass banned from entering the country.
Oh no.
But listen,
Okay, hang on.
this is okay.
Yep,
That's
nailed it.
Yes, exactly, Katie. This is 100% true.
Yeah.
So, but we're gonna listen to what terrible things David Wood has to say. But I really want to set some focus on Glenn here. All right.
Thank you. Need a little levity today. Okay. Whew. All right.
Who's Alex?
You can do it, Bish.
Sharia compliant hellhole. One of my issues with David Wood is he seems to see Great Britain as Islamistan, and apparently we can't move in Britain without tripping over burqas or mosques or that kind of thing. So David's view of Britain might be more informed by certain social media silos than reality, although he is in this
Really?
country a couple of times, and of course he is debating Islam all the time. So perhaps he has a window on things that I don't, but Sharia compliant hellhole is not the way I experience things.
There we go. Just pause it for a second. So
Yeah. Okay.
I just
kudos
wanna
to
say-
the host here because yeah,
yes.
nailed it.
And I think it's important to give credit where it's due, because it's kind of astonishing how much this trope about the Islamification of the United Kingdom has infected Christian apologetic spaces. This
I've
seems
seen
to
more
be,
than one Muslim in my life. It's being overrun.
it's kind of, and the crazy thing is it's all American guys, right? Guys who don't
Yeah.
actually live in the UK or visit all that often.
To be
they're
fair, the
getting,
UK does have its own concentration of bigots and nationalists and
Certainly.
xenophobes because lest we forget Brexit.
lest we
Oh,
forget.
but I thought that would
Very
get
true.
all of the foreigners out of England. What do you mean it took us out of the EU?
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
business is failing. What? Okay. Everybody
Okay,
explain
so-
this, but whatever.
So yes, I just wanted to start before we issue necessary corrections to Glen Scrivener. Glenn, I do appreciate that you pretty gently but still called out David Wood's bigotry. Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you for
kudos.
doing that.
Mucho kudos.
All right. So now that was the debate, his debate review. We're going to jump into to the video proper that he did on this topic of the angel of the Lord. And he has a very interesting way of beginning his discussion on this.
Okay. Let's go to the clip.
Yeah.
And whenever you're talking about God, you must ask the question, which God are we talking about? And the answer of the Abrahamic faiths is the God of Abraham. The answer of the Abrahamic faiths is, let's go back to Genesis, let's go back to the Old Testament, and let's make sure that our bedrock definition of God is a biblical definition of God. And so Jews and Christians and Muslims will want to be biblical, and we will want to go back to our earliest texts and ask the question, who is God from that perspective? At that point, a fundamental paradigm will assert itself into the conversation. And the paradigm is basically that Jews, Christians, and Muslims, those who are these monotheists, they are believers in the Abrahamic faiths, they roughly have a doctrine of God that is common between them and then has nuances at the periphery. And so this common understanding is that, well, we're all monotheists, so we're all on board with the oneness of God. It's just that Christians have this additional doctrine, this nuance, this flavoring, this icing on the cake, and whereas everybody believes in the sponge of the Unitarian God, Christians have this icing over the top of that sponge to make the more Christian cake, and we round things out with Trinity. But there tends to be this assumption, okay, we are all Unitarians basically until we get to the New Testament, and then this divergence happens. And Christians take one path towards the Trinity, and Jews and Muslims stay on the Unitarian track. And I'm here to tell you that is utter nonsense. That is not what the God of Abraham is like.
Pause
That is
it
not
for a
what the
second.
scriptures are like.
Pause it for a
Hebrew-
second.
I'm
Let's
Exactly.
all agree, everyone, let's all agree with this. This is utter nonsense, right?
No, it's pure and utter nonsense.
Yes. Let's continue.
Okay.
Hebrew scriptures, otherwise known as the Old Testament, and the Greek scriptures, otherwise known as the New Testament, proclaim the same doctrine of God, and it is not a Unitarian doctrine. There's a fascinating place in the book of Acts where the Apostle Paul is on
Okay,
trial
pause it for
before
another
Felix,
second.
and
Oh.
he's being
Because I want to go back to the diagram, and here's the big problem. This is the big problem here. This also is utter nonsense.
Pure and utter
This is
nonsense. Get it right.
pure and utter nonsense. That's right. What Glenn is calling proto-Trinitarianism is more properly something like it's just straight up polytheism, for lack of a better word, when encountering.
But that's a bad word. We don't say that.
Yes, but this is the necessary option and the one that constantly gets ignored. And this is why this topic is so hard for some people to wrap their heads around, because they don't understand the nuance and the complexity of cosmology in ancient Israel or in Second Temple
Anachronistic.
Judaism.
That's
Yes.
the academic term.
Anachronistic worship is the academic term. Thank you very much, Hayden. All right, let's go.
All right.
On trial before Felix, and he's being accused of being a member of a sect. You know, they have a category for Jews. We all know what the Jews are like. They're doing their thing about this strange God. They don't believe in the gods. They just believe in this one God of Abraham. Paul seems to be doing this strange thing. He belongs to this sect, the sect of the Nazarene, these followers of Jesus. And what does Paul respond with? In Acts chapter 24, verse 14, he says, I admit that I worship the God of our ancestors as a follower of the way, which they call a sect. So his critics say he is sectarian. His critics say that he has diverted from the path. Paul says, I am a member of the way. This is the way our ancestors.
I'm pausing because we definitely need to talk about that.
About what Paul said?
The top diagram is closer to history than the bottom one.
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Sorry, I was not paying attention.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I know why he's going to go for the bottom one.
You kind of have to, right? If you're in his shoes.
Yeah, spoiler alert for anyone who isn't in the know, there is no, quote, pure original version of Christianity that you can somehow get back to. That has never been a thing.
Nope.
So anyone that's arguing to the contrary is not arguing from any position of historical knowledge, or for that matter, most other fields of knowledge. So
ancestors have always worshipped God. This is the understanding of God that our ancestors have always shared. I have remained true to the way. I am not a sect. The Christian vision is that whatever way Paul is on, that is a way that has the deepest continuity back to our ancestors, back to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, back to the books of Moses, back to David, back to Isaiah. Paul is on that ancient way.
Okay, pause it.
hey, so he said that's just an assertion.
Yeah. Do you want to bring up the slides? And we'll go through the first few of these. I wanted to spend some time talking about this text in Acts first, because this is some kind of cherry picking, you guys. So he cited this text from Acts 24, verse 14, but this I confess to you that according to the way, which they call a heresy, in this way, I worship the God of our fathers, believing everything in accordance with the law and whatever was written by the prophets. So this takes place in a speech that Paul gives before the governor Felix, which is part of a really large section at the end of the book of Acts here, that begins when Paul arrives in Jerusalem, and then he visits the temple with some Gentiles, and he gets in trouble for being in the temple with Gentiles, and the people freak out the people at the temple, and they start beating him up. He ends up getting apprehended by the Romans. He delivers a defense of himself and his conduct before the people in the end of chapter 21 and into chapter 22 there. Then he goes before the Sanhedrin, and he argues in front of the Sanhedrin in chapter 23. And then finally, he ends up in front of the governor Felix in chapter 24. So it's like this huge chunk of text, right, that he's pulled this out of. And he's tried to connect this. Glen Scrivener has tried to connect this, the way, the way that I worship the God of our fathers, believing everything in accordance with the law and whatever was written by the prophets, he's trying to connect this to a Trinitarian view of God. But like, I wish people would just read the text. Like, it's not hard. And you don't even have to read it in
How many
Greek.
times have I
I've
said
got the
that?
Greek up there. So let's look here. This first text here, this is the men who apprehend Paul. This is why they've apprehended him. Israelite men help. This is the man who is teaching everyone everywhere against the people, the law, and this place. They're in the temple. Even more, he has brought Greeks into the temple and defiled this sacred space. This is the charge against Paul, right? Can you show me the next text? So this is Paul's defense that he delivers to the Sanhedrin. This is what he says to them. Men, brothers, that's supposed to say, I am a Pharisee, a son of Pharisees. Because of the hope and the resurrection of the dead, I am being judged. According to Paul, the big problem here is not Trinitarianism, really. The big problem here is that he is preaching the resurrection of the dead. Let's look at the next text here. So this is from this is from his appearance before the governor Felix, and this is the charge again from the Jewish leaders who have gathered before the Roman governor to make their case. And they say, finding that this man is a pest and an agitator, standing opposed to all the Jews throughout the world. Moreover, he is a ringleader of the Nazarene heresy. He even tried to defile the temple, so we grabbed him. So again,
so funny. This guy's a pest and an agitator. They're like, yeah, he's annoying AF.
He's that's absolutely right. Exactly.
Love it.
So it's just and here's Paul once again with his defense, and here's the entire quote for you, not just 24 verse 14, but I've included verse 15 in there as well, which I think is important. In this way, I worship the God of our fathers, believing everything in accordance with the law and whatever was written by the prophets. I have hope in God that which these men also wait upon, that there will certainly be a resurrection of both the righteous and the unjust. And then the writer of Acts goes into some of the supposed differences between the Pharisees and the Sadducees with regards to the resurrection of the dead. But like, seriously, this has nothing to do with the Trinity guy. It's just not. And to pull this text out and attempt to make a case that Paul's religion is just, it's just Judaism, It's just standard Judaism. And I would say that, yes, I think Paul's religion probably was part of the Second Temple Jewish world. It's a pretty complex, varied, dynamic world.
Yeah.
There's all sorts
do
of
want
flavors.
to note that the idea of the resurrection was perfectly in line with Second Temple Judaism. That was not a new
Totally
idea. Obviously, the obvious that's redundant. Clearly, the text people go to most often is Daniel, where he's talking about the resurrection directly. But also, it's relevant because I had literally just read this a couple weeks ago. In the Tractate Sanhedrin, they're discussing the text that we read after the Shema, so like Deuteronomy 11. And when they're quoting it, it's like, hey, we're going to give you this, or God says, like, I'm going to give you this land, and da-da-da-da-da. The sages quote that part, la'avotechem, latat lahem, and they say, well, to you isn't being said, meaning to the congregation. It's to them, meaning the ancestors, like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And they say from here, this passage in Deuteronomy is where the resurrection or enlivening of the dead is from. in the Torah, so you don't have to wait till Daniel to get there.
The writers and the
So,
collectors of the Dead Sea
yeah.
Scrolls also reflected on this question using Ezekiel's vision of the Valley of the Dry Bones. So
Yeah.
it's absolutely this is in the air there. And I have questions also about how accurate this or how closely the rejection of resurrection can be tied to the Sadducees. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. But all this to say, what I wanted to point out is that it's not good to try and build your case off of a cherry-picked text like this that has nothing to do with what you're trying to present. So maybe we can continue with the video here. We'll get back to the slides in a bit.
All right, let me
Let's watch the next clip.
full screen that. Every time I think I have enough monitors, I don't have enough monitors. So I can never have enough. Okay.
Paul
never have
God,
enough.
Jesus' doctrine of God, the New Testament doctrine of God is the way. It's the way things have always been, which is why the New Testament spends no time whatsoever on correcting anybody's doctrine of God. Paul expends not 1 calorie of effort in trying to teach you about a Trinitarian doctrine of God. He doesn't say, now, as for this strange new doctrine about Father, Son, and Spirit, let me take you on this diversion. He doesn't spend any of that. He spends a lot of time talking about, now, what do we do about diet? Now that the Old Testament kosher laws have been superseded, what do we do about circumcision? What do we do about ethnic Israel that's now burst the banks of Jerusalem and is now flooding the world as this global Israel? How are we going to live together as Jew and Gentile? He spends a lot of time talking about that. He spends a lot of time talking about Christ, his life, his death, his resurrection, and the new life that we have in him. He expends not 1 calorie of effort in trying to teach you the doctrine of the Trinity as though that's something novel, as though that's something that really needs updating. Paul worships the God of our ancestors and is a
Bring that post back. Yeah, there's a reason, because this came.
You gave it away,
centuries
Dan.
after.
You gave the secret away.
Get ahead of the class.
Oh.
follower of the way. Other people might call Trinitarianism a sect. The Pauline way of thinking about it, the Christian way of thinking about it, is that the Pauline doctrine of God is the way. It's the way of the God of our ancestors. There is just one God, but this one God has presented himself as Father, Son, and Spirit, as the Most High God who reveals himself through his word, through his Son, through his voice, through his glory, through his angel, as we're going to see. That this doctrine of God has been the way that God has always revealed himself in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, and beyond.
There we
one
go.
way that you can show.
All right. Oh, I was going to say, you are correct in that. Let me grab the clip. Oh, you didn't name it. It's the
univocal voice.
Very good.
You were right.
Yeah.
I got there.
You got there. So, yeah. Thank you, Dan, for pointing this out. You can see this. Vish, chat, you understand this. The reason Paul doesn't talk about the Trinity is not because it's just something everybody recognized. That's not the reason. It's not. The reason is because this is a concept that really just did not exist in the earliest stages of Christianity, and this is fairly widely recognized. Paul doesn't talk about the Trinity because he doesn't know anything about it. Paul's religion is fairly typically Hellenistic Second Temple Judaism, in which there is this complicated cosmology, which is more in line with old polytheistic beliefs of the ancient Israelites, but it's also undergoing a lot of dramatic changes with emerging apocalyptic thinking and other Hellenistic influences. In fact, it's probably not monotheistic, certainly not in the way that we understand that term. I think it's pretty complicated. but it's still pregnant with this sense that the cosmos are richly populated by all sorts of divine beings, from the high God, Yahweh, to angels. There's stars up there that people still considered to be divine beings, and you've got cherubim and seraphim. The holy ones, which are mentioned with enormous frequency throughout, particularly poetical texts in the Hebrew Bible, as well as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Paul himself talks about the holy ones in a couple of instances in First and Second Thessalonians. That's ambiguous enough to suggest that he might be talking about divine beings. Most often, he's talking about ancient prophets or people as part of the community of faith. But the point is that this is a world that is still saturated by these divine cosmic beings. What we would probably recognize as gods. So, like, we should start to think about these questions under those sorts of terms. Do you have anything else? Okay, Hayden Tank.
Everyone knew about it. There's nothing written about it before. There's just nothing, and they had to figure it out. They still had to figure it out by Nicaea, like, because it's so clear.
So clear, right? When was Nicaea? Somebody please remind me of that.
A couple centuries later. Yeah.
I think it's
talk about the
350,
papacy
isn't
because
it?
it was already established. Oh yeah, same
Yep.
line of reasoning there. And obviously, everybody already knew about combustion engines. Why do you have to talk
They
about
sure
it?
did. Holidays discussion of the Christ hymn in Philippines. I call the Philippines in Philippians as an angelic metamorphosis tradition. I think suggests Paul is fitting right in with Greco-Roman Jewish ideas of divine mediation. Yeah, guys, like Den's written like a whole ass book about a lot of this kind of stuff. It's a good
You
book.
can get it. Isn't that?
You can get it. You can get it for
Divine
free.
Images?
It's
it's free. It's
Yahweh's
open
Divine
access.
Images.
Yeah. Head up that link tree.
Open access. Grab the link.
Listen,
So
Paul didn't talk about the legalization of weed because it was already widely accepted and understood. Hashtag tell a rod.
Very good. All right.
Yeah.
So that's to start. Okay. That's where the problems lie. And I'm going to, I think before we dive into this proper, we're going to start watching a couple more of these clips. But before we dive into this proper, I'm going to say just a couple of things that I think are crucial to understanding this question of the angel of Yahweh. First and foremost, we have to understand this within this richly polytheistic world with numerous cosmic divine beings. Secondly, the Hebrew Bible text, you're shocked to discover, is not written in a univocal voice. It's not univocal. The texts span centuries, huge periods of time. They're written by numerous different individuals, and they're not always talking about the same thing. And that leads me to the third thing, which is really critical and something that I want to set some focus on in my presentation today, is that when you look closely at this figure, the angel of Yahweh in the Hebrew Bible, in the Old Testament, you will discover that different texts, different writers have different perspectives about who or what this figure is. These figures
No way.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool when you break it down like that. I would also mention that Paul went to Arava for 3 years to find a dead guy. So that's fun. Thanks for that. All right. Shall we watch another clip here? Paul didn't talk about sex. Paul was just, listen, guys, Paul was just very careful not to drop spoilers. Okay, that's it. He was
very considerate.
He was just waiting. Very considerate of Paul. So we appreciate it.
Okay.
Those of us who just finished it this
this
last week. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one way that you can show that is by having a look at this doctrine of the angel of the Lord. Here's how David Wood introduces the topic. First, he talks about passages of the Old Testament scriptures in which there are multiple persons called Lord. There are not multiple lords, there are not multiple gods, but there are multiple persons in a text that are called Lord. He draws attention to Genesis 18 and 19. He draws attention to a number of passages in Zechariah in which the Lord Almighty is speaking, and then he says, the Lord Almighty has sent me. There is a sent one of the Lord who himself is the Lord, and that brings him on to the topic of the angel of the Lord. Here's what he says.
Then we got a mysterious figure called the Angel of the Lord. Whatever you think of when you think about angels, just get rid of that. The angel of the Lord is no ordinary angel because this angel is somehow the Lord. Angel just means messenger. In Hebrew, it can refer to a human messenger, a spirit messenger, or in this case, the Lord himself.
That's a very important caveat that David wants to add in. Angel does not mean creature. We're not talking about Christ being a creature who's very, very exalted. The cults might talk about that. We are talking about the uncreated one. Angel is about the role of this person, not about the ontology of this person. It's very important to say that there are many, many angels in the Bible, many plural sons of God with a little s. There's 100 million, apparently. 10,000 times 10,000. There's probably even more than.
Question.
Yes.
Does Hebrew have capital and lowercase letters?
No.
Thank you,
But
Your Honor.
you know
Nothing
what?
further.
You know what does happen, and we can talk a little bit about this. Is Hebrew does have definiteness and indefiniteness. I don't know.
Yes.
Indefiniteness, is that a proper term? And even though it can be difficult to discover these sorts of things, which are useful in encountering a question like this, there are ways to do this. So we will look a little bit at that. You know, it's how do you guys define monotheism? Multiple divine beings, or one eternal God and multiple created divine beings? I mean, do either of those fit the definition of monotheism? I don't know. I just don't know. It's whatever monotheism is, I don't spend much time thinking about it because it certainly doesn't intersect my world. So, but yeah, we can yeah, let's continue with this for a bit. Yep.
Than that in terms of angels, but there is one specific definitive angel, the angel of the Lord. In the same way, there are many sons of God, but there is one definitive son of God. So when we talk about the angel of the Lord, we do not mean this is a creature. We are not denying that there are other multiple angels, but that this angel is a particularly special one. We do not think that this person, though he is the pre-incarnate Christ, I do not think that he has become incarnate here. So what's going on with all these appearances of this divine person? Well, in a sense, I don't really know. I don't understand the physics of any of this, and I'm not making any claims to understand the physics of any of this. But if you believe in theophanies at all,
using physics to try to make it sound more rational or reasonable. That's
yeah,
funny to me.
right. Yes. Thank you, Dan. The identification of the sons of God as angels is a Greco-Roman period invention. The Hebrew Bible repeatedly affirms the existence of other gods and consistently
Talks about
identifies
them a
them
lot.
as the B'nai Elohim. Yes, all the time. As a matter of fact,
it
so
even records Hashem taking an L to a different god because one of the god's adherents, you know, the ruler they were fighting against, sacrificed his kid. So monotheism. Yeah, it's not accurate.
So yeah, and Dan is right. I actually haven't read your article on monotheism, Dan.
Oxford Research Encyclopedia of Religion. Very fancy.
So it's important to check that out. So
yeah. All right, shall we continue?
Yes.
Also, yeah, he's he's correct. Chemosh. Here you go. All right.
all, if you believe in appearances of God, which the Old Testament is full of, then you've got the same problem that I've got. It's just I want to be a little bit more specific and say all theophanies are Christophanies. I'm not making any claims for Christ being a creator.
All theophanies?
Yes.
All of them?
Or Christophanies. Apparently every single one.
Does he mean all of them within Christianity? Or does he mean all of them in
the Hebrew Bible
traditions? Okay.
Or
just clarifying.
So it just, yeah, he's understanding that every time you see one of these so-called theophanies, these appearances of God to a man or a woman.
Okay.
It doesn't happen, it's
created angel. I don't think that at all. I'm not making any claims for Christ having been incarnate in the Old Testament. I perish the thought. No, nothing like that. Here is the role
I wonder
of
why
the
that's
sent
so
one of the Lord.
problematic.
And just as the Lord has always done his business through his word, the word of the Lord, through his voice, the voice of the Lord, through his glory, the glory of the Lord, so he also does all things through the sent one of the Lord, the messenger of the Lord, like that. All those caveats are really important, and David is right to flag up those sorts of things.
Okay, pause it. So, listen, and then we'll go to the slides again, Vish, next. But I mean, there's two things here. In the first place, one of the really big problems I encounter when apologists try to tackle questions like these is they just don't seem to appreciate how important each of these individual terms and ideas is on their own, and they just kind of try to mash them all together, right? The word of the Lord, the son of the Lord, the glory of the Lord, I mean, oh my God, like you have to unpack these individually and very carefully, because no, they're not always indicative of the same thing. And also, I just want to point out, I think it's frustrating that sometimes these guys get so close to
Oh yeah.
nailing it, to figuring this out, to figuring out the issue, and they just miss it. When he said that angel, malach in Hebrew, is probably more appropriately just understood as a role. I'm like, oh my God, dude, you're almost there. You're so close. You're so close to being there, because as we discover, and one of the important aspects of this whole question is that people can be malachim, they can be messengers. Gods can be malachim. Divine beings can be malachim. They can all take on this role, and I think this is key to helping to solve most of the problems in trying to understand these texts.
Yeah, and I think
Hayden,
Bible Lord nailed it. His stressing of this is telling, because if he admitted that it was a human form, it would become heretical.
I
And
guess that's true,
why,
right? Yeah.
well, that's why they stopped just shy of getting it, because their
Yes.
dogma comes first. It can't be human because that's heretical. But then he's human and God later. That's not heretical somehow. But you see exactly where they stop, because that's where their doctrine takes over. That's why they
Exactly.
seem to get real close,
Yep.
and then they stop just shy of the finish line.
Yeah, I think you got it. According to Exodus 23:20-21, the angel of Yahweh represents God so thoroughly and exercises God's power is because my name is in him. Yes, very true.
Just the way ancient mysteries worked.
Yeah, and that's a complicated part of a series of complicated texts there too. And we'll get to those. But if you want to bring the slides back up, let's get some of this stuff out of the way for clarity. Let's talk about this question of ontology. Is this just a role? I think this helps us to understand what's going on most of the time. There's an excellent article on the angel of Yahweh in the Dictionary of Deities and Demons in the Bible by Samuel A. Meyer that I've drawn quite a bit of this from. In terms of terminology, one of the things he does right away, and I think this is important, is to draw focus on this question of whether we're talking about an angel of the Lord or the angel of the Lord. And he makes this observation. He says that the definite article never appears. It is always an angel of the Lord in texts of the New Testament. And the same appears in the Septuagint as well, where it is almost always indefinite. And he's got the passages listed there. If you could go back, Vish, you're going too quickly through these.
Sorry.
So another text that he pointed to, and I think this is interesting and telling here, is this text in 2 Kings chapter 19 verse 35, which is then repeated in 2 Chronicles chapter 32 verse 21. Look what's happening here. So scholars are by and large agreed that the first text in 2 Kings 19:35 by the Deuteronomist is the earlier of these two versions. And then the chronicler is retelling the story. And look what he does with this. So it happened that night that Malach Adonai, an angel of Yahweh, went out and he slaughtered in the camp of Ashur 185,000. That's 2 Kings chapter 19, verse 35. But now look at what the chronicler does. Vayishlach Adonai Malach Vayakad. Then Yahweh sent out an angel. And he literally disappeared every mighty warrior, leader, and chief in the camp of the king of Ashur. You see what he's doing here? The chronicler seems to understand, seems to recognize, seems to interpret this text, this Malach Adonai, this angel of Yahweh, as just an ordinary angel. And I think that when you sit down and you look at the vast majority of instances that appear throughout the Hebrew Bible, it's just as simple as this. This is just a way of designating a messenger coming directly from Yahweh, a way of designating a cosmic messenger from Yahweh, coming to do Yahweh's bidding. So, and honestly, that really does take care of most of them. So Meyer goes on to say that in extra biblical Jewish literature, he says that the angel of Yahweh is also presented generally as a designation applicable to any number of different angels. Other early witnesses who are forced to make a choice in this regard, he says, will be noted below, and their overwhelming consensus is that the phrase is to be translated as indefinite. So the vast majority of information that we have from the earliest material, the earliest Jewish material, which is the Second Temple Jewish literature, most of this stuff which is translated into Greek, and in the New Testament texts, shows us that people understood this figure not as the angel of the Lord, but as an angel of the Lord, as in one of Yahweh's messengers. To that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I think I'm going to bring this up, Vish, if you want to. Let's take that off the screen for a second. I'm going to show a picture here because it's fun. So there we go. So when we look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, one of the things that is quite interesting is that if you do a word search for this term, Malach Adonai, angel of Yahweh, there is a grand total of 3 instances in the entire Qumran corpus, and one of those is just a direct
Trinity confirmed.
There you go. So one of those is just a citation of a biblical text, and then the other 2 occur in these really, really fragmentary manuscripts. So I've pulled this one up here. Let's and I'm going to zoom in on it. So this is one of them, and you can see it right here. It's a papyrus fragment. It's on the right hand side, and it appears in the second last line. Do you see that there? Malach, and then you see 4 dots, 4 superlinear dots, just kind of sitting at the top of the line. So that's a representation of the divine name, the Tetragrammaton Yod He Vav He. That's Malach Adonai. But here's the problem with both of these other 2 instances. So this is from 4Q391. This is fragment 52, line 5. The other occurrence is in 4Q226, fragment 6A, line 3. I couldn't find a photograph of that one, but according to the transcription, what appears there is very much what we see here. And here's the problem. It's a highly fragmentary mention of this figure without enough usable context to really gain a clear sense of what's going on. However, I will say in 4Q226, it seems to be a paraphrase or a retelling of the story of the Akedah, the binding of Isaac from Genesis chapter 22, which mentions the appearance of the angel of the Lord, an angel of the Lord, who stops Abraham from
Abraham. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Hold up!
So
Don't do that thing.
it's probably what's going on there. But here's what's significant about this. If you spend any amount of time within the literature of the Essenes, within the Qumran Yachad, who wrote and collected the Dead Sea Scrolls, you will come to discover that they are kind of crazy about cosmic beings, about angels, and about malevolent spirits, and about other gods. They talk about it all the time. Isn't it interesting that there is virtually no reflection at all among these people about this figure, Malach Adonai? I wonder why. I wonder why that could be. And I think the answer here is just obvious. There's just no prolonged reflection on this figure. And it suggests to us that for the early Jews, at least, they understood the Malach Adonai, the angel of Yahweh, as a fairly generic angelic being. This is a title, I will posit, that could be applied to any number of cosmic figures. All right. Something that Meyer, I'll pull this down, and then let's see. We can bring the slides back up. Let me just see. So yeah, you can go to the next one. So I think this is the next one is the quote from Meyer. So yeah, let's look at. Oops, you went too far.
Do you want me to go
There
forward?
we go. No, just stay there for a second. We'll get to Hamadi's book in a minute. So there are numerous instances of one thing that Meyer points out in his article in DDD is that the numerous instances of Malach Adonai where there seems to be some confusion between this figure as a representative of Yahweh and Yahweh himself. And he also notes that in most of these instances, there is also some form of textual corruption. He makes this point. There is in the Bible no single angel, the angel of Yahweh. The phrase Malach Yahweh is better translated as an angel or messenger of Yahweh when it first appears in a narrative, for it represents the appearance of an unspecified supernatural envoy sent by Yahweh. In cases where a simultaneous deity and discontinuity is uncomfortably present between Yahweh and his messenger, the term Malach is probably a secondary addition to the text in response to changing theological perspectives. So Meyer actually argues that a lot of the confusion that people like David Wood, people like this guy Glen Scrivener is picking up on with regards to this figure, the angel of Yahweh, whether he's some sort of special divine being, almost equated with Yahweh himself, or something else. He's pointing out that one of the reasons for the confusion that's created within the texts has to do with the fact that he thinks that most of these are probably secondary additions that were created out of a more developed theology at a later point in time, when people started to get uncomfortable with the notion of God being so anthropomorphically present in a lot of the texts. And Dan agrees. He says his book, Yahweh's Divine Images, further strengthens and elaborates on Meyer's argument. And I think this is certainly very likely. It's not necessarily agreed upon by all scholars, and we can go to the next one here. This is where I bring in Esther Hamori. Esther Hamori has written a really, really fun book called God's Monsters that was published last year. It's excellent. People should go read it. But this is I believe this is her doctoral dissertation, and I only picked it up a few weeks ago, and it is very good. when gods were men, the embodied god in biblical and ancient Near Eastern literature. And Hamori's project really focuses in on there's these two instances in the Hebrew Bible which are proper theophanies. The only two really proper theophanies in the Hebrew Bible are in Genesis chapter 18, the appearance of Yahweh to Abraham at his tent, and then in Genesis chapter 32, where Jacob wrestles with God. And but Esther Hamori, in one section of her book, takes the time to basically do a survey of divine society, as she calls it, of what the skies look like, the skies that are populated by divine beings, in an effort to gain a clear sense of what we're talking about. And she spends some time talking about the angel of Yahweh. And I'm gonna read the whole thing. You can bring up the next one, Vish, because I've got part of this quote here, but I'll just read the entire bit here of what she says. Oh shoot, I hate it when my screen does that. That's okay. So she says that the Malach Yahweh may be a particular manner of reference to theophany, or maybe the result of the angelic role in some texts having been blurred with that of Yahweh himself. As Westermann has observed in the oldest narratives, the Malach Yahweh and Yahweh are interchangeable. After Hagar's interaction with the angel in Genesis chapter 16, she refers to, quote, Yahweh who spoke to her, end quote. And the angels in Genesis 19 warn that they will destroy the city, which Yahweh then does. This type of blurring is also evident in Genesis 22, where the one who calls to Abraham from heaven is referred to alternately as God and an angel, and Genesis 31, 11 to 13, in which the angel of God identifies himself as the God of Bethel. The same is true of Exodus 3, in which both God and his angel are said to speak to Moses from the burning bush, and perhaps Judges 6, in which both God and the angel speak to Gideon. We will look at a few of these texts briefly as we go through this today. The ambiguous relationship between Yahweh and the Malach Yahweh has led to a debate regarding whether the angel was a theological development toward avoiding the representation of Yahweh. Sarna, for example, suggests that angels are, quote, a conceptual device to avoid anthropomorphism, end quote. Korpel also supports this common idea, stating that, quote, in a number of cases, Malach Yahweh may replace an earlier tradition in which it was Yahweh himself who visited man in anthropomorphic form, end quote. James Barr, however, argues that the Malach is not a late, more sophisticated theology intended to, quote, assert the remoteness, transcendence of Yahweh, end quote, but rather is, quote, deeply embedded in stories of great antiquity, end quote. Rofe also rejects the idea that the Malach Yahweh represents a unique theological development, arguing that it must have the same origin as that of all the angels, namely the surrounding polytheistic traditions. Perhaps the strongest evidence against the notion that the Malach Yahweh was an instrument to avoid anthropomorphism is that if this was the goal, it failed utterly. Consider the texts in which the Malach appears interchangeably with Yahweh. So, I do want to point out that there are different scholarly ways of handling this question. Not everyone is agreed that this is always theological development, that this is always theological massaging of a text, which has become uncomfortable for people. Possibly. This is possibly what's going on. However, I also think there's good reason to see this figure or to see these figures or these ways of speaking of these figures as quite ancient, and this interchange between Yahweh and his messenger as quite ancient. All right, so I talked quite a bit. We can put the slides away for a minute, and let's go back to the video. David Wood gives two examples in the next clip of this issue with the Malach Yahweh in the Hebrew Bible.
Look at Judges 6. The angel of the Lord came and sat down to talk to Gideon. The angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon. Then it switches to the Lord turned to him. The Lord answered. Then it goes back to the angel of the Lord. Then, when Gideon realized that it was the angel of the Lord, he exclaimed, "Alas, sovereign Lord, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." But the Lord said to him, "Peace, do not be afraid, you are not going to die. If you see the Lord in all his glory, you're dead. But if you see the angel of the Lord, who is somehow the Lord, you might survive." One more example of this. Here's Jacob blessing Joseph in Genesis 48. Then he blessed Joseph and said, "May the God before whom my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, walked faithfully, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, the angel who has delivered me from all harm, may he bless these boys." He, singular. So the God, and the angel are all referring to the same being. The angel is God, but the angel is the messenger of God. This is all over the place in the Old Testament, from Genesis all the way to the prophets.
And maybe just back it up to this. Well, we'll dispatch of this one first, because this is fairly easy, and this is what really bugs me, I think, quite often when people enter into the fray on this question. So the word there, "May the God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked faithfully," this word here is ha Elohim, with a definite article. So problematically, what happens with a lot of people who don't read the language in the first place, the Hebrew language, and then also don't understand it at a really deep level in terms of what's happening in the Hebrew Bible, what they fail to recognize is that this term Elohim, even though this is the common word used to identify the God of Israel, this is not the only usage of this term. This term is used to identify all sorts of divine beings. In many respects, the proper translation for Elohim in the Hebrew Bible is simply divine beings, or a lowercase g God. And that's what's happening here. May the God, the divine being before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked faithfully, the divine being who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, the angel or the malach, the messenger who has delivered me from all harm, may he bless these boys. The mistake that David Wood is making with this text is understanding that this Elohim is God, capital G God, and that's not what's happening here. This is almost certainly, because this is something that occurs with some frequency throughout the patriarchal narratives, is the appearance of these helpful divine beings, which help Jacob and the patriarchs get through
Mapleson, I got
some of
this
the
one.
problems.
Why does God need a definite article? Because there are many. Well, to quote a famous movie by Kubrick, there are many like it, but this one is mine. Because Abraham and Isaac could have walked before
That's
any
right.
particular god
Yes.
or gods, but
Exactly.
Joseph is saying, hey, the one that they walked for, that specific one, not all the random other ones, the one that they specifically walked in front of.
Yes.
That one.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I think this is less likely, but I think you could shift this text in the opposite direction as well, to suggest that the term malach here is a way of referring to the God of Israel. I think that's possible. That's not the way I go. But the point here is that even though this is the same figure mentioned in this blessing, this is not the high God. Or it's certainly not the high God in the way that David Wood is thinking about it. This is not, the monotheistically developed Yahweh of the early church and later Judaism. All right, let's finish this clip, and then we'll talk a little
Angel
bit about
is
Judges.
the messenger of God. This is all over the place in the Old Testament, from Genesis all the way to the prophets. We just don't pay attention to it when we're reading.
Okay. Just pause it for a sec.
Wanna keep going?
So Let me see. Let me look at my notes because I'm apparently not as well organized as I thought I was. So,
Oh,
oh dear. Uh, yeah, let it go for a little bit more, I think.
okay.
Sorry. Let's see where we're at. Oh, actually, no. No, let's stop there.
Actually,
And
I just saw something as well in the chat.
Oh.
Is there any translation that avoids this confusion? All the capitalization really communicates a different point. My personal non-academic answer is translations really aren't going to help you with some of these. You really need to learn the original language. Even if you're not a conversational speaker, I would say just go easy mode and learn what the the articles and the suffixes are, so that you can at least visually go, oh, this is plural, this is singular, this is definite, this is indefinite. At least get that far. Even if you're only like to the pictorial, this shape equals this thing, that's going to help more than trying to get a translation, because as much as translation is an art, it's also it's a choice and it's a reflection of the translator.
That's
So
very true.
they're going to be bringing in their personal understandings and perhaps dogmas. We hope not, but yeah, it's one of those things. It's not you're just anyway. I could talk about the
even there, and one of the problems with translations here too confronts the issue that I've already mentioned, and I'm going to say a little bit more about that here as we continue, is the fact that the same word is being used in slightly different ways by different authors. So, like, you can it's helpful to provide some nuance to translating every single occurrence of Elohim, and there are English translations where Elohim is properly translated as divine being, or then otherwise translated as God with a capital G, right? Sometimes the English translations make that distinction clear. Most of them don't do it often enough for my tastes, but other issues happen, right? Like for instance, one of the ones that that can be frustrating is a term like Kodesh, which I would suggest to you most of the time is with reference to divine beings. Same with a term like Kochavim, the stars. We understand those as stars, but almost every single time that this word appears in the Hebrew Bible, this is not just a general reference to the stars that you see above your head in the sky. The people believed and they thought that those were the armies of the gods. They were the cosmic soldiers, right? Like it gets more complicated than that. But let's
just talking about translations of text and even prayers, trying to get people not into an ancient mindset, but trying to bring the text into a modern mindset. And we were explaining, like, or discussing with each other why that's problematic, and we both kind of don't like that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, translation, it's necessary, right? And we all have to do it. And you know, the book I have I'm going through my first read through of my book now. I have provided English translations for every single Hebrew text that I cite in the book. So it's, you know, it's something that we all have to do, but I just don't think there's a great way to do it always. And it's something that we're just kind of stuck with. But so let's talk about, David Wood points to this. There's this story in Judges chapter 6 of Gideon, who is confronted first by the Malach Adonai, the Malach Yahweh, the angel of Yahweh. And he has some suspicions about the identity of this figure. He has him kind of run a gauntlet of tests, and the angel performs some magic for him. Gideon suddenly recognizes who the figure is, and he's terrified. At a couple of points in the narrative, it says that the text actually says that Yahweh is the one who's speaking to Gideon and not the angel of Yahweh. There's some vacillation back and forth here, right? So he's looking at a text like that and going, well, wow. I mean, you've got this angel, but then you've also got Yahweh, and they both seem to be Yahweh, but they're separate. So, oh my goodness, it must be Jesus, right?
You know, it just
yeah.
struck me. I think Americans, like from the United States, can grasp this a little easier if I use an analogy. So currently, Donald Trump is the president and does the operation of the executive office from the White House, right? There's also a press secretary who can issue, documents and statements in the name of the president. And when we say the White House says blah, it may have specifically been the press secretary. However, it's understood to be coming directly from the president. So we can say the White House says this or the president says that. That's how we understand it. The press secretary is the emissary or the mouthpiece for the president, but it's not their words that they're speaking of their own volition. So I think
that's
people tripped up by this. Like, I don't understand what the difference is between the angel, but God's saying it, but if the angel's doing it, it's like, dude.
So
how
that's a good, relatively simple way of kind of understanding this, right?
Analogy, but
and it's not because sometimes it confronts issues with it like admittedly, right? Like lots of times the identity of this figure, you really have to sort of think your way through this. But we need to talk about Judges, in particular the book of Judges, with regards to this question of the angel of Yahweh, because the angel of Yahweh makes more appearances in the book of Judges than he does they do in any other text, individual text in the Hebrew Bible. The other place that the angel of Yahweh appears most frequently, or the angel of God, as he's called there. He's never called that in the book of Judges, interestingly enough. But in the other place he appears really frequently is in Genesis and Exodus, and we'll talk about those in a minute too. But this is really what I want to sort of zero in on. It's frequently mentioned in the book of Judges. This is a key player in the. I'm not actually going to talk much about Judges 2, I'm afraid, because I'm trying to get through a whole bunch of stuff here. But he is a key player in the what's the word I'm looking for? The flow of the narrative in the building of the arc of this this collection of stories that appear in the book of Judges. He's a player. Interestingly, one of the things we see is the angel of the major appearances, the significant appearances of the angel of Yahweh are in Judges chapter 2, right at the beginning of the book, Judges chapter 6, right in the middle of the book, Judges chapter 13, right at the end of the book. And I think this is deliberate. J. Alberto.
3 big ones, Trinity confirmed.
There you go. Klaus Sprung, who has written a really good commentary on Judges, makes this point. I'll get to that in a minute. I'm just going to read something here by J. Alberto Sagan from his Judges commentary on the messenger of Yahweh. He says, the expression which I have used here seems better, the messenger of Yahweh, as opposed to the angel of Yahweh, to keep the distinction from the angelology of late Judaism, where the angels have an autonomous existence of their own with their own hierarchy. And I think this plays into a little bit of the analogy that you were trying to make, Vish, where within ancient Israel, I think there's a lot more, there's a stronger sense of how corporate identity can exist within individuals, maybe more readily than it does in a more strongly Greco-Roman sort of Hellenized Jewish context. Here he's speaking now of Judges chapter 6, as in other ancient narratives, Genesis chapter 16, 21, 22, Exodus 3:2, Judges 13, and in the present text, the messenger is a being who is interchangeable with Yahweh, identical to him, and does not exist in a separate form, being his visible manifestation. It is thus quite possible, and not a sign of different traditions, that Yahweh and the malach interchange within a short space. There is no particular significance to this, he says. In no way is this an angel with a particular status, nor can the alteration with Yahweh be understood as a sign of different traditions, as supposed by those who want to divide the text into sources. Klaus Sprunk, who wrote a really good commentary on Judges a few years ago, has a couple of really insightful things to say on this passage in particular. So first, he points out that there's a remarkable change here in the story from the messenger of Yahweh to Yahweh himself. And he says that this is lost in the Septuagint, harmonizing the text by reading here again a reference to the messenger of Yahweh. So at one point in the narrative, the messenger of Yahweh makes a statement to Gideon. Gideon responds with a question or with some doubt. And then it says that Yahweh answered him just directly. So how do you handle something like this? Sprunk says it was as if Yahweh was provoked by Gideon questioning his loyalty and now does not want to hide behind his messenger anymore. The text literally says he turned to him using the verb panah. The verb often marks a change from Yahweh punishing his people to bringing salvation, for example, in places like Leviticus 26 or 2 Kings chapter 13. Here, it can be better compared with texts about Yahweh turning to a prayer, albeit that is more an accusation. So what Sprunk is getting at is that the writer of this text, a writer of these texts and Judges, is using this interchange between Yahweh and the messenger of Yahweh for literary purposes, to provide a clearer sense of Yahweh's feelings and of the action taking place within the text. Here, this is Yahweh kind of confronting Gideon when his loyalty is challenged. He goes on to say here that with regards to Gideon's reaction, this is speaking of when towards the end of that story, Gideon is suddenly, when he suddenly realizes who this figure is, the angel of Yahweh, he's terrified of being in the presence of what he recognizes as a divine being, and he's worried that he's going to die as a result. And it says the angel of Yahweh assures him, no, you're fine, you're going to be okay, right? So Sprunk observes here, in Gideon's reactions there is a climax. In verse 13, that's chapter 6, verse 13, he introduced his answer with Be Adoni, my Lord. In verse 15, he was a little bit more pious, saying Be Adonai, using the plural form of Lord, which is a common address for Yahweh. This isn't the divine name, but this is Adonai. Now he addresses Yahweh directly. Aha Adonai Yahweh. Alas, my Lord Yahweh. The same cry of despair, aha, will be used by Jephthah when he is confronted with his daughter in Judges 11:35. The same fear for the consequence of seeing God is found with Manoah in chapter 13, verse 22. It is based on what Yahweh said to Moses, no man shall see me and live. That's Exodus chapter 33, verse 20. Within the context of the story, taking the perspective of Gideon, it is best to translate Malach Yahweh or Malach Adonai here as a messenger of Yahweh and not as the messenger of Yahweh. So what Sprunk is getting at here, and I think this is really important, especially with regards to a text like the book of Judges. I think it's taking place in Genesis and Exodus 2, which we'll get to in a little bit. I think it's really critical to point out here that this figure is playing a role within the literary development of what's happening in the text. And we really need to pay close attention when it comes to reading these texts, between the interaction between Yahweh and the Malach Yahweh and the interchange there. It does not always indicate what you think it does. Some of this is rhetorical. It's speech. What's the word I'm looking? These are literary devices used by the writer to communicate things that he wants you to focus in on in the text. So no, the angel of Yahweh is not some special, singular, super cosmic figure that stands at the head of Yahweh's forces. No, rather he is the interchange between the two has more to do with just the literary developments in the text, and when you need to check and you need to look at what's taking place in each text in order to understand or to gain a fuller appreciation of that. All right.
Sorry. There
where
was
we
a
at?
couple things. This was an off-it comment.
They developed the idea of guardian angels over nations in the Greco-Roman period as an innovation on the idea of a divine council and a patron deity over every nation. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I assume Dan's talking about, oh, here's the thing. In every single occurrence of the messenger of Yahweh Elohim, the removal of the word malach leaves a perfectly coherent and consistent text. This is true. This is absolutely true. And this is where I think this could just be and I suspect this is this is the case that Dan makes, that Meyer makes, that I think it's Sarna makes, that it seems like the Malach Adonai, that the Malach part is an insertion in order to massage or to create some to as a result of some theological development that occurs later. But this is absolutely true. I think you could still go in a direction of seeing the Malach Adonai as a legitimately ancient feature of the text, but one that is also just interchangeable with Yahweh. In the same sense, you could leave it off of the text altogether, and it wouldn't change the meaning of the text. But people seem to have a clearer understanding of that in antiquity than maybe we do. All right, let's look at another clip here. Unless you've got a
Alrighty. No,
Yeah.
but we do have some super chats we need to come back to
all
at
right.
some point.
So let's look at this clip, and then we'll do a couple.
Green,
of
you'll have to
super
pause it if you want to read these verses yourself. But here is every single time that this figure, the angel of the Lord, shows up. And I just want you to ask yourself this question. Who is this guy? Genesis 16, verses 9 to 14. But
This is why I don't like apologists, because every single time they bring up the English, they don't read the original text. How does he know it says the angel? Did he look it up? Does he find the definite article ha there? We don't know.
Well,
He's just reading the
right?
translation. It's a mystery.
Within Hebrew, when nouns are in construct, they are always by default definite. So you don't tend to include the definite article. Sometimes you do. So in particular, because Yahweh is a proper name, it would be definite, but that doesn't help you with regards to how to translate the verse, right? So and what the scholars that I've been reading have been telling us in every instance so far is that the best way to approach these texts is to translate this as an angel of the Lord. So,
Okay.
yes.
the angel of the Lord is the God who sees Hagar and who Hagar sees. God sees Hagar. Hagar sees God. Who is this God who can be seen? He is the angel of the Lord.
Pause it. So let's go back to the text for a second.
Okay.
Yes. If it's indefinite, it's indefinite. Yes. So but when it comes to Yahweh is always definite. So it's in that sense, you kind of have to think your way through the text a little bit. So yeah, this is the encounter of an angel of Yahweh to Hagar, who's been abused by Sarah, telling her to go back and obey her, and then he gives her this promise to regarding his regarding her son Ishmael. But then look here in verse 13, it says she gave this name to Yahweh, who spoke to her. So she's recognizing that Yahweh here is interchangeable with the angel of Yahweh, and says, "You are the God, the divine being, who sees me." I would have to double check there. I actually think it's Elohim there, even though the name of the place
Verse
is El
13?
Roy. Yeah, I think it's Elohim. But this is this is one of these instances where as Sarna and Dan and Meyer and others will point out, you can just remove verse 13.
There's
No,
13.
it actually is. It is. Yeah. There we know the word. It is actually El Rai.
Ale.
So it is the ale.
Mhm.
The ale. You are ale who sees me. Yeah. But this is an instance where an argument can be made for some form of textual corruption. These first number of cases in the book of Genesis are kind of interesting in that, and I'll just wait. I'll get to that in a minute. So that's the first one. Let's look at. He goes through these pretty quickly, so we're going to go through most of these pretty quickly. If you want to just press play.
Genesis chapter 22, it's the Abraham and Isaac story. Who is the one who intercepts the judgment? The angel of the Lord is the one who intercepts the judgment of God, who speaks of God in the third person, but of himself as the Lord, to whom Abraham's seed belongs. The angel of the Lord swears by himself. He demands obedience. He promises blessing. All the things that you expect from God.
See, pause it there for a second. So, like, not every time that, in particular, I noticed this with a couple. If you want to go back to the text for a second, just back it up a few frames. So, yeah, he's making the point here that the angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, "I swear by myself," declares Yahweh. So this is the angel of the Lord speaking and delivering a message, and seems to self-identify as Yahweh. And then at the end there, through your offspring, all the nations of the earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. I think that that the case can be made that when an angel is delivering some of these messages, they will just speak in the name of the one who sent them. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, I don't think all of these passages require that the angel is identifying themselves with
No.
God. They could just be delivering the message. It's like, hey, I'm quoting my boss.
So
I don't think that requires you identifying as the boss. Like,
something else I want to point out here is verse 16, where it says, "I swear by myself, declares the Lord." This here is Naum Adonai, which is a very frequently occurring expression, and it's usually translated as "declares the Lord." When I translate it in my book, I just say "an oracle of Yahweh." This is a way of signifying what follows, or it can either signify what follows as the direct speech of God, or what precedes it as the direct speech from God. So you see prophets all throughout the Hebrew Bible using this expression in exactly the same way. A prophet will open his mouth and will say, "Ne'um Adonai," an oracle of Yahweh, and they will deliver a first-person oracle of Yahweh. Does that mean now that the prophet has become Yahweh? No. That's
Nope.
just the delivery of the message. I think that's probably
Yeah.
what's happening here. All
They're
right,
just quoting.
that's it. They're
Nope.
just quoting. Is also represented as used by Yahweh themselves. Yes, exactly. So
Yeah, seeing agreement
the
with Simone as
prophetic
well.
oracle marker. Yep. So I think the next one is Exodus 3, 1-14.
Okay,
Let's see what he
find
says.
out.
Exodus 3, the burning bush. Who is in the burning bush? The angel of the Lord is the God of the burning bush. He is the Lord who comes in salvation, and he is the sent one in verse 12. The angel of the Lord is the sent one who saves the Israelites out of Egypt so that they can worship God on the mountain. Notice he doesn't say, I will save you from Egypt and you will worship me on the mountain. Neither does he say, God will save you out of Egypt and you will worship God on the mountain. He says, no, I will save you out of Egypt and you will worship God on the mountain. He speaks
Can
of
you
himself
pause
in
it
the
there
first
for a
person. He speaks-
second?
Again,
Is
it
that
doesn't
kinda
require
dumb?
that. It does not require that reading. That's his preferred reading, which is
Well, just-
fine, but
Just think about
the
this.
reading
He's
that's not
saying
required.
the angel says, I will deliver you from Egypt and worship God on this mountain, and uses that to say they must be exactly the same figure.
No, because
no.
even later, doesn't Hashem say, hey, I'm going to send my malach in front of you?
Yes.
My name is in him. So what do you mean
Yes.
he's doing the actions?
Exactly.
Why don't I send him to do the
Exactly.
actions? And he's like, hey, the reason I'm doing these actions, aka, setting you free from Egypt, is so that you can go worship Hashem at this mountain.
Yes. Exactly.
What? Apologists are so
Okay.
frustrating.
Yes. Continue. And then we'll pause it when he's
Okay.
finished with Exodus.
of
13.
this other person called God in the third person. Who do you think you are? Angel of the Lord. Well, verse 14, here's who he thinks he is. I am.
This is
Thank you.
Yeah, it really is.
Thank
It really
you.
is. No angel is mentioned, and Moses is represented as speaking directly to God.
Speaking
God
directly to-
also
yeah.
uses the third person to refer to themselves all the time.
Yep.
Yes. So
I'm also with Simone on this. Given how many different versions of this narrative or test, I think you can say it
Yeah.
says this, but not. It doesn't say that. Yeah.
exactly. All right.
Woo.
Okay. Let's finish.
Proceed. Oh, this is the sure. Yeah.
Am who
Yeah.
I am. The angel of the Lord is the great I am.
The angel of the Lord
For the
didn't say
first
that.
70
Mike. Pause it.
Stand corrected. The angels mentioned back in verse 2.
Bra-
Just putting
the
that up
only
there for,
time. Listen.
posterity.
Listen. So this is a complicated text. Exodus chapter 3. One of the reasons it's complicated is because all four of these terms appear in that short 15 verse space. Ha Elohim, Elohim, Malach Adonai, Adonai. All four of them appear there. I am tantalized by the idea that there's an undercurrent of this story that envisions something of a divine council setting on the mountain at the burning bush. So it's possible that, in fact, the mountain is called in where it's introduced, I think in verse 2 or verse 3 of Exodus 3. It's actually called the Har Ha Elohim. Could be the mountain of the gods, which would make sense then if you've got different designations occurring in this interesting sort of passage about Moses's commissioning. Is it possible that at an earlier stage in the development of this story that this looked more like a setting in which there were multiple divine beings? And also, I'll say this, Dan mentioned it, that the angel is mentioned back in verse 2. This is the only place he is mentioned in this story, I believe. And the text says that the angel of Yahweh appears in the fire, like in the burning bush, and then all the actual speech that takes place that follows is Yahweh himself speaking. So yeah, there and cuneiform is right here. There is a complicated textual development with this story that's interlacing multiple sources. So it just continues to add to the confusion. I had a couple of notes here. Yeah, just this is from G.I. Davies's commentary on Exodus 1-18. He says in some passages, God and his messenger or angel are clearly distinguished, but more often, and he's talking just about Exodus here, more often the narrator slips from one to the other almost unconsciously. The sender is the presenter in the one who is sent. That's a quote from Hauptmann's commentary. So here it is. The angel who appears in the fire of the burning bush, but it is Yahweh or God who speaks in verses 4 and 7. Later in this narrative, the appearance is said to be Yahweh himself in 3 verse 16 and 4 verses 1 and 5. The expression provides an important connecting link between elements of the narrative drawn from the J source. So yeah, there's textual development going on here, and that also plays a role here in a lot of the confusion. All right. Should we look at a couple of those super chats before we continue?
Yeah, sure.
Dan says Exodus 24:1 has God say to Moses, "Come up to Yahweh." Yes. And in Babylonian Talmud Sanhedrin 38b, that causes someone to ask why God didn't say, "Come up to me." God speaks in the third person frequently. This is a lot of what's going on here, right? No, they're not new discussions. And importantly, we're dealing
Thank
with
you, Simone. God's only speaking third person. We're not one of the many. Good.
Very good.
Woo!
So
inside baseball.
People had in antiquity, people had different ways of conceptualizing these sorts of things. So all right, let's look at some super chats.
Okay, let me grab those real quick. My unfinished journey for 222.
Oh, thank you as
Hail
always.
Nero. Kip and Vision. Hail learning languages.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hail learning languages. It is fun. Except for
My
Romulan.
unfinished sock for 2. Don't be wood and lead literal, like and share instead.
Oh God, I need a drum, a ba-da-ching thing.
Man,
I
if
really
we
do.
were using the Discord call, they have some sounds pre-installed.
Yeah,
That's one of them.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh well.
It would have to be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Heber Costa, thank you for the super chat.
10 Brazilian real. Shanti
Sweet.
just described one of the premises of my doctoral thesis.
Oh,
Translations reflect the translator point of view. People don't like that because it shatters the illusion of transparency. Yeah.
Very
Hey, man.
nice.
Great minds.
Yeah, and good luck on your
good luck on your
PhD
your
thesis.
dissertation.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Excellent. Is that all we got for now?
Yeah, that is
okay.
All we have for the moment.
Good. So he's going to take a slight detour here, and we're going to humor him for a few minutes, because there's something else that I really want to talk about here.
Chapters of the Bible, right up until Exodus chapter 20, the way that we see God is by seeing this representative, this divine mediator, the sent one of the Lord. As David is at pains to say, angel does not mean creature. We're not saying that the angel of the Lord is a creature. Angel just means sent one. Idiomatically, it means messenger. The divine messenger of the Lord is the way that God Most High has always revealed himself. This is not a New Testament novelty. Remember John chapter 1, verse 18. No one has ever seen God, referring to God the Father, but his one and only Son, who is at the Father's side, he has made him known. When John 1:18 says no one has ever seen God, you might want to respond.
This is, again, going back to what I was saying earlier about you can tell where people's dogma starts to overtake the text, plain reading. Because he's reading that particular statement backwards into the Hebrew Bible.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Yep, there we go. There we go.
Exactly. We must understand this text through the lens of what John is providing us.
Univocal voice.
Thank you. It's just not an honest way of handling the text. We need to look at these critically and historically, people. All right. Heber Costa noted that he defended his thesis back in 2018. So nice. Thank you, Dr. Costa. All right,
Well,
let's continue.
time traveling Jews exist, so I can wish you luck in the past.
Excellent.
And well, didn't Abraham see God and eat with him? Didn't Jacob wrestle with God? Didn't Moses see God? And John is telling you, no one has ever seen.
Yeah, didn't God walk in the garden?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't say angel of God walked in the garden. It says God walked in the garden. It's like, yo,
Sure.
human, where you at?
Yep.
Just, this is so frustrating.
Seen the Father, but the one and only Son at the Father's side, he has always been making him known. If anyone sees God or walks with God or eats with God or wrestles with God, who are they wrestling with? John is crystal clear. No one has ever seen the Father.
There you go.
It's the one and only Son who has always been making him known. We'll get back to the angel of the Lord passages in just a second, but let's just take a detour into John for a second.
Okay, so pause it there.
No.
And we are not going to follow him on his detour into John, but he raises a very important point. I don't know if you caught it at the beginning there. He talked about how through the first 70 chapters of the Bible, through Genesis and most of Exodus, and this is where I'm talking about when I say he's so close to getting it, but just doesn't quite get it. Yes, he is recognizing something that's happening in the text here. And I believe, I didn't look into this, but I believe this is predominantly in the what scholars would identify as the J layer, the Yahweh's layer of the text here, is that God was seen only through his representative in a bunch of these texts in this cluster of literature. Yeah, as has been pointed out, a major problem here is just assuming the univocality and then reading the New Testament as a lens for the Hebrew Bible. Look, no one questions that Christians imagine Jesus in the Hebrew Bible. We all know that. You just can't demonstrate it by appealing to your own literature to show it. But there's other problems here. Something else that he's picked up on is that, yes, men see Yahweh all the time. I shouldn't say all the time, but importantly, there are two critical texts where men saw Yahweh. Abram saw Yahweh in Genesis chapter 18 and Jacob in Genesis chapter 32. So God, very importantly, in both of these texts is described as what? He's described as an ish. What's that, Vish?
A man.
He's a man.
Behold,
in both
a
of
man.
These texts. This is not the Malach Adonai. This is not the angel of Yahweh. So Esther Komori's book, When Gods Were Men, is about these two texts. It's really, really good. One of the critical points that she makes in her book is that the function of angels, including the angel of Yahweh, is always in the fort of overt communication of divine messages to humans in one form or another. And then she also notes that this is quite distinct, actually, from the true theophanies that you see in Genesis chapter 18 and Genesis chapter 32 in this regard. Here, I'm just going to quote what she says here. The category Malachim incorporates a wide variety of forms and functions, sometimes seemingly linked only by their shared title. Nevertheless, as diverse as the many functions of angels are, it is striking that no Malach text reflects the same function as the two Ish theophanies, those in Genesis chapter 18 and Genesis chapter 32. Several of the Malach texts do include blessings. All of these are among the patriarchal narratives in Genesis 16 and 21 to Hagar, chapter 22 to Abraham, and chapter 28 and 31 to Jacob. However, the angels in 4 of the 5 Malach texts, which include blessings, are non-physical, communicating their messages through dreams or disembodied voices. In fact, these 4 constitute a disproportionately high percentage of all of the texts in which angels are clearly restricted to dreams or to heaven. 4 of the angels in the 5 texts are non-physical, and the 5th is ambiguous in form. No angel ever clearly blesses in person. This stands in marked contrast
Mm.
to the blessing in the two Ish texts, which both take place by definition very much in person. So what she's getting at here, also, Dan says, he says the angel was not incarnated, but Yahweh eats with Abraham. Yeah, right?
Yup.
That's true. Yeah.
Yup.
So if he's insisting that this is somehow Jesus, that's a problem, I think, right? Very, very true. But so Hamorti notes that these two Ish texts are kind of unique, just in regards to the Hebrew Bible. She also says, I think she makes a pretty good case for this. I haven't quite finished the book yet, but so far, it's convincing me. She makes a good case that these Ish appearances, as she calls them in Genesis 18 and Genesis 32, are quite unique, even within broader Canaanite literature. Within the literature from Ugarit, a number of scholars have attempted to draw connections to some of the mythologies there, and she makes a good case that on a number of fronts they don't quite work. And one of the things that she points to, which is really, really interesting, is just how viscerally human, how strikingly anthropological God is presented. Anthropomorphic. Yeah, thank you. Anthropomorphic in both of these texts, which is different from similar sorts of appearances in the Ugaritic texts. For example, quite often something that you see in the Ugaritic text is that when somebody sees Baal or sees Anat, an expression that's used is that you could see him or her from leagues or for acres, which basically means that they're gigantic. They're so big that you can see them coming from miles and miles away, approaching you, right? Because the gods,
Galactus-sized gods.
yeah, they're huge, right? But that's not what's going on here in these stories, featuring Abraham and Yahweh, or featuring Jacob wrestling with El, probably, right? Like they are men. They're Ish, and this is actually kind of remarkable in terms of the broader literature of the period and from the region. But I don't think remarkable in the direction that a guy like Glenn here, or that David Wood, really wants to go, because what this indicates is that Yahweh, in his personal appearances when he chooses to do so, or El, is just very much like a man. It is pretty remarkable and pretty interesting. But now I want to point something else out that is really, really important. If you do a search for Malach in all of Genesis and Exodus, do you know what you come up with? You know what you notice right away when you do a search just for Malach?
What?
Every single one of these occurrences is either Malach Adonai or Malach Elohim. Every single one.
Interesting.
Except for, so there's a notable exception in Genesis chapter 19. Okay. In Genesis chapter 19, it talks about the two Malachim who go and help Lot escape from Sodom. But that is the one and only exception. Everywhere else throughout the entire book of Genesis, the only divine messengers are identified like this: Malach Adonai or Malach Elohim. This suggests pretty strongly, I think, that this is just a way for this author to identify divine messengers. And then, something similar within the book of Exodus. Even though there are occurrences of Malach, there's Malachi, my messenger, mentioned in a couple of places, and then there's just mention of Malach, but clearly with reference to the same figure, the Malach Adonai. So something similar though in the book of Exodus is that the only messengers are messengers of Yahweh or messengers of God.
I don't know if anyone else, other than the millennials, And the Gen Xers remember Mad TV. It was like a daytime alternative to, or at least a alternative to
Right.
Saturday Night Live. There was this character they had, and her quote was, "He looked like a man. He looked like a man." And that was really her only big descriptor of people, whether it was humans or aliens. They look like a man. And that's how a lot of ancient conceptions of deity worked.
Yes.
Idea that
Yes.
they're less and less like humans, they don't have bodies anymore, then they don't have our foibles, and they're not petty and things like that. That starts going away.
Yeah.
But initially,
Oh.
he looked like a man.
Exactly. So we're gonna look at the next clip about post Sinai theophanies in Exodus chapter 23, 32, 33, and 34:9. These angel of the Lord appearances there. But before we do, I have to say one more thing here. So in Genesis in particular, all the angels are just angels of Yahweh. It looks the same, very much the same in Exodus. Here's something else that's really interesting. If you do a search for the term Malach in Numbers and Leviticus and Deuteronomy and Joshua, guess what you find? It doesn't appear. With one exception, Numbers chapter 22, which is the Balaam story, features an appearance of Malach Adonai. But that's the only place. Everywhere else, nowhere in Leviticus, nowhere in Deuteronomy, nowhere in Joshua. Okay? This is a literary convention, people. This is a way in which the author who's writing the material in Genesis and Exodus is talking about divine beings. Okay? Dan mentions that Numbers 22 was probably originally God themselves. Interesting. And I think, yeah, that's probably right. I think that's right. We will get to that text in a little bit, but let's. He's got a few things to say about the post Sinai appearances of the angel of Yahweh, and also not the angel of Yahweh, that I think we need to.
And let's dive back into the Old Testament, and we'll see this. We're in Exodus chapter 23, and finally, on top of Mount Sinai, there is a God who nobody can see. For the first 70-odd chapters of the Bible, there is a God who walks in the garden in the cool of the day. There is a God who wrestles with Jacob. There's a God who shares meals with Abraham. But on Sinai, there is an impenetrable transcendence. And there we are in Exodus chapter 23, where on top of Sinai, Moses is dealing with the unseen.
Girl, what do you mean he's imperceptible? They literally saw clouds and stormy weather.
Yes, exactly.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
This is one of the earliest things I just started picking out. I'm on this whole rabbit trail. I'm writing a paper about clouds and storm deity stuff. God is like hiding or concealed by these storm clouds, and there's thunder and all this scary stuff, and it's loud, it's frightening. What do you mean they couldn't see?
Right.
Like,
right.
What is he talking about?
Yeah. It's this whole section is kind of frustrating with just how all over the place he is.
Okay, let's go.
Seen Lord, who then promises his angel, and the angel possesses the divine name, who will forgive sins. Who can forgive sins but God alone? Okay, who does this angel think he is? Filled with the name of the Lord, the angel of the Lord is the one who brings blessing, who brings salvation, who brings forgiveness. Who is this angel of the Lord? In Exodus 32, Moses is told about my angel. So that the unseen Lord on top of Sinai speaks to Moses about my angel who will go with the Israelites. And in Exodus 33, verse 2, he's spoken of simply as an angel. And this is not satisfactory for Moses. Not any old angel will do. And so Moses in chapter 33, verses 7 to 11, we're told about how he would normally go into the tent of meeting and he would share this face-to-face fellowship with the Lord as a man speaks with his friend. There is a real familiarity with the Lord of the tent of meeting. That is meant to set us up for the contrast on top of Mount Sinai, which is the rest of chapter 33. On top of the mountain in Exodus 33, God says, you cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live. And you think, what? In the tent of meeting, Moses is seeing him, speaking to him face to face. And yet there's a Lord on the mountain whose face cannot be seen. What is going on? Well, of course, the God of the Bible is not a Unitarian. He's always words from the Father through the Son in the power of the Spirit, which is why he promises to hide Moses in the cleft of a rock and to declare his name. And that's what happens in Exodus chapter 34. When Moses hears the name of the Lord, the compassionate, the gracious God, he says, chapter 34, verse 9, O Lord, to this unseen Lord, O Lord, let the Lord go with us. Essentially, he's saying, you have declared your name and nature. Oh, that is the exact name and nature that I know in the face-to-face Lord. Oh, Lord, let the Lord go with us. Oh, most high God, let your divine messenger go with us. Oh, Father, send us with the Son.
Pause it.
Dan's done multiple videos on this.
It's really important. And it's
Yeah.
did I take it away too quickly? Sorry, I did have it, but it's really important that the angel of the messenger of Yahweh has this power because the name of Yahweh exists within him. It's a critical feature. But like there's so much going on here. This whole
For English
a lot of
speakers,
this stuff.
I think a good way to make an analogy is that the messenger or the emissary has been deputized.
Yeah, that's a good way of. It's a very good way of putting it. So now I need to say something though about like even just sitting down and reading carefully the text, because what he's glossing over here is that there's a whole, again, a narrative arc taking place across the book of Exodus, and the textual history of Exodus is complicated and it's a little bit messy, but in what we've got now, in Exodus chapter 23, you've got this promise of the angel who's going to go before you and defeat your enemies. Then you've got this long section describing the tabernacle, basically what the tabernacle is going to look like, all the features of the tabernacle. It's like 10 chapters. And then in Exodus chapter 32, you have the golden calf incident. And this is then what kind of sets off everything that occurs in chapters 33 and chapter 34, where Yahweh is incensed because of the golden calf incident, promises, he first of all says that he's so angry, he just wants to wipe everyone out. Moses intercedes. Then Yahweh says, well, okay, fine, I won't kill everyone, but I can't stay with you anymore because I am just that angry. If I stay with you, if I go with you into the promised land, I'm going to kill everyone. I just am, is what he's saying. And through Moses's petitioning, because Moses is the one who is God's good friend, he's able to talk him down in these instances. The solution that they arrive at, they end up pitching the tent far outside of the camp, far away from the mountain, just because of this issue, because God, Yahweh, can't get close to the people, because if he does, he's going to kill them. The angel,
I kind of feel where God's going with this. It's like, you cheated on me, I'm sleeping on the couch.
Yeah, there you go. It's at this point, right, where he says, okay, fine, the angel will go and will go in front of me in my place, because I'm not going. This is part of the concession. He's just missing a lot of this crucial context. But on this issue of the name in the name of Yahweh in the angel, and his capacity for forgiveness of wrongdoing, I think there's a legitimate question. This is from Cornelius Hauptmann's 1993 commentary on Exodus. He says the conclusion of chapter 23 verse 21 is puzzling. Should be in me be taken as causal of a concessive? Is the messenger unable to forgive because he represents Yahweh, who takes sin so seriously that he refuses to acquit? Or is he unable because forgiving is solely Yahweh's prerogative? So I think even there, the question about the angel's capacity to forgive sins is an open one. Hauptmann actually says that the latter seems to be the case. There is an anticipatory allusion here to the idolatrous worship of the golden calf in Exodus 32. In spite of the warning, Israel is disobedient, yet Yahweh is exceedingly merciful. Even though Israel was fully aware of the consequences of idolatry, forgiveness is impossible. He was nonetheless willing to make a new start with Israel in chapter 34, verses 10 to 35. And I want to make a point importantly regarding some of the terminology here. The angel of Yahweh does not appear in any of these texts after chapter 32. Malach Adonai appears in Exodus 3:2. Malach Elohim appears in Exodus 14:19. Malach appears on its own in both Exodus 23:20 and 33:2. And then Malachi, referring to my angel, in Exodus 23:23 and 32:34. So yeah, but he's gonna say something now. He's gonna say something now about Numbers chapter 22.
Okay, here we go.
We'll go through these quickly here.
In Numbers chapter 22, remember with Balaam's ass, who is the one who is confronting Balaam? Well, it's the angel of the Lord sent by God to bring his judgment to Balaam.
Okay. Yeah, right. So what important point did he miss there? And look how it's translated here too. Look at the translation here. I think it's if you go back to the
okay. Yeah, I can go backwards. For those of you who don't use YouTube as much as I do, you can scroll back frame by frame or forward one frame using the comma or the period buttons on your keyboard.
Okay, we're waiting for it, everyone. It's coming. It's coming, guys.
Is this not the passage? I thought he just showed it like twice.
This is the second part. I'm
okay,
looking for
let me
the
go back
first
a little
part where
further.
the no, stop. No, you're there. You're right. Yes, this is good. I'm sorry. Oh, damn it. Shoot. Look at that. Okay, look at this. Look at this. What does it say here? But God was very angry when he went, and the angel of the Lord stood in the road to oppose him. Is that really what it says? Is that what it says? It says to oppose
Do we need to
him.
pull up the text?
Do we know what this word is here? I mean, I can tell you what the word is. It's the Satan, right?
It's the Satan, the adversary, the enemy.
Yeah, and his dad. I just called him Dad. As Dan pointed out earlier.
I mean, he is a dad. He's just not.
Yeah.
Your dad.
No. And he's
also,
not,
yes, thank
not
you, church lady. Could it be Satan?
God is acting as a Satan in this text. Very importantly, he does it again in Psalm 82, right? Stands up in the divine council.
You were just that this week.
Yeah. Yes. So it's very convenient, I think, that this guy just skipped right over that little tidbit here.
This is exactly. Let me just highlight this. So Malach Adonai, that's the messenger of the, messenger of Adonai. Bederek, in the way or in the path or in the road. La Satan lo, to be a Satan to
it's
him.
It's not an infinitive verb. It's not to oppose him. It's
to be a Satan.
A Satan.
Yeah.
Or to him in his face. Something else to point out here that's also really interesting. This verb stood, the angel of Yahweh stood in the road. This verb is very frequently used. Where is it there? Yeah, it's Yatzav is very commonly used for divine encounters. Right? Very interesting stuff. And they're the kind of divine encounters too. In my book, I've gotten accustomed to translating these expressions most frequently as face off. And part of that's because I'm Canadian and hockey's great. But I think this encapsulates the sense of this. This is a confrontation. It's the same verb that appears in Psalm 82.
This, contention, because it's not the Ahmad, it's not standing. Like, you're just standing up. This is like taking an adversarial or oppositional position.
Yep.
I'm here to fight.
Face off.
Ding, ding, ding.
Face off.
Yeah.
It's a face off fish.
Love it.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's continue watching.
1v1, baby.
The next of these pretty quickly.
Wrestling god RKO out of nowhere.
Judges is full of this character, the angel of the Lord. Then we get to Judges chapter 13.
Importantly,
the Lord is clearly God's mediator. He's a messenger sent from God who also has the name of God. And when they see him, they exclaim, "We have seen God."
Okay. Can you pull up the slide presentation for just a minute, because there's something really important that I need to point out. I'm not going to talk too much about this particular passage. I want to talk a little bit more about Judges. Okay, remember how I said that the angel of Yahweh makes these 3 critical appearances within the book, at the beginning of the book in chapter 2, in the middle of the book of Judges in chapter 6, at the end of the book in chapter 13. This is intentional. This is narrative crafting by the writer. He's doing this to move this story forward through stages, and look at the correspondences of these and the pattern in these appearances. Especially when you compare Judges 6 to Judges 13, they're very, very similar in terms of how they're written. A messenger of Yahweh comes or appears. That's in Judges 2 verse 1, chapter 6 verse 11, 13 3a. There is a message, then there's reactions, and then in Judges 6 and Judges 13, there's the offer of a sacrifice or a meal with goat's kid. It's placed on the rock. In all 3, there's the bringing of a sacrifice. And then in the last 2, there's fire from the rock. There's the disappearance of the messenger. There's a fearful reaction. And there's reassurance by Yahweh in Judges chapter 6. In Judges chapter 13, it's Manoah's wife, his woman, who actually provides the reassurance that he's not going to die after having seen Yahweh's messenger. And then there's a positive follow-up. So I just want to make this point that when we're looking at these texts, it's really important to understand that this is literature, that these are narratives, these are stories. Someone is writing and cobbling this stuff together to illustrate and to make points. We need to take this stuff seriously with regards to these texts. The function of the angel of Yahweh is part of this literary development through Judges. All right, you can take that down.
Okay.
We'll watch a couple more clips, and then I've got one more slide to look at.
All right.
In Psalm 34, it's fascinating how David, the psalmist, and the community of Israel praise to worships the angel of the Lord. The Israelites reflected on the person of the angel of the Lord. They ascribe to him divine honors. He encamps around those who fear him to deliver him. We are to fear God only, but we are to fear the angel of the Lord. It is God who delivers us, and the angel of the Lord delivers us. And we sing praises about him, about the angel of the Lord, who we fear and who delivers us. In Psalm 35, he is not only the deliverer, he is also the judge.
So pause it. Yeah.
He's reflecting.
So I just wanted to point out, with those passages in Psalm, those are the only 2 instances in the book of Psalms. And again, I think this feeds into the larger point that I'm making, that different authors of the Hebrew Bible will have different conventions when it comes to using different terms or the same terms. So I think these instances in the book of Psalms, there's nothing intrinsically special or unusual about these at all, as much as strenuously as Glen Scrivener is working to make these significant or special by suggesting that God is the only one who can deliver, or that God is the only one who can be feared. Not in this context, and certainly not on the part of this writer. I think that there is just a very natural. Oh, thank you so much, Cheryl. That's very
It's
sweet.
on fire.
Just wait till you get to. I'm very excited to get through this, to get to Hosea chapter 12, because
Oh my God,
I
I
mean,
love
it's kind
Hosea.
of cool. So yeah. So the psalmist, I think, is just using this term in a very generic sense. It's hard to ascribe any kind of special significance to this figure on the basis of anything that's taking place in the psalm. Only appears in these 2 psalms out of the entire book.
Shall I
All right.
proceed?
Yes.
In Hosea chapter 12, he is reflecting back
Here
on
we go.
Genesis, and here is somebody also in the Old Testament reflecting on another Old Testament passage, and he's reflecting on the fact that Jacob wrestled with God. Well, how could Jacob wrestle with God? Well, Hosea, from within his own Old Testament frame, is like, well, it must have been with the angel of the Lord, right? It must have been with the divine mediator, okay? Hosea 12, verse 4, Jacob struggled with the angel and overcame him. He wept and...
I love how he showed this and just didn't spend any time on it.
Yeah.
Jacob was left alone, and a man
A
wrestled
man.
with him till daybreak. When
Yep.
the man saw that he couldn't overpower him, he touched his socket of Jacob's hip, so his hip was wrenched. He's like, yo, let me go. Jacob's like, no, bless me. Puts him in
Yeah.
a figure 4 leg lock. Bless me.
Also, very importantly, in verse 30 there, Vish, where he
Why
names
did he
the
name the place
Peniel,
Peniel?
because I
I
saw God.
Panim el
face
Panim.
to face. Yep. Yep.
Weird.
So it's
Hmm.
very strange. So but let's we need to talk about the text.
Okay.
God.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
Hosea,
yeah,
from
yeah.
within his own Old Testament frame, is like, well, it must have been with the angel of the Lord, right? It must have been with the divine mediator, okay? Hosea 12, verse 4, Jacob struggled with the angel and overcame him. He wept and begged for his favor. He found him at Bethel and talked with him there. The Lord God Almighty, the Lord is his name. Who is the angel of the Lord? He's the mediating Lord who has the name Lord God Almighty. The Lord is his name.
Okay, pause it, and
Well,
then
my first-
I need you to bring up the slideshow because we need to look at this. We need to look at this text here, just
Okay.
quickly. Next slide. All right, here we go. There it is in Hebrew. There it is in English. There is something very odd about this text. All right. In the belly, he tricked his brother. This is speaking of Jacob. This is when Jacob was in the womb with his brother Esau. In his strength,
Yaakov.
in
Love
his
that
strength,
wordplay.
what happened? Sarah et Elohim. He fought, or he wrestled, or he contended with a god. Look at this line. Vayasar el malach. What on earth
Sar. Woo.
is
Huh.
that? But look at this. El malach. What do you do with el malach? Right? So
I
so for
mean,
people,
are you reading this as El referring to a deity, or are you referring it to El as like a preposition?
we don't know, right?
Mhm. Anybody who says the Bible's clear, it doesn't know the language. Because this
and
is
it's
wiggly.
not. This is an unusual way of saying if it would be odd to use a preposition here like that, which is why most and we'll talk about the verb here in a second too, right? Most translations will say something like they will say that in his strength he wrestled with God, he wrestled with an angel and overcame him. The suggestion has been made that that there's a corruption here in the text, and that el maybe should be et, the preposition et. He wrestled with Malach, with an angel. I don't know how convincing that is. I think and Esther Hamoria has written on this as well, and she has said, and I think I agree with her, that there probably is some sort of corruption in the text at this point, because on its own, if we're understanding El and we're understanding Malach to be with reference to divine beings, I mean that's just there's just not a good way to translate that on its own, which is why I left it
as El Malach.
That's why I left it.
I know that Simone and I are kind of discussing this in chat. I tend not to take the Nakud as quote gospel, for lack of a better word. but I want to know grammatically from Simone or Dan or yourself, anyone in here, if this is referring to Jacob saying Vayasar el Malach, he overcame the angel. I mean, temporarily, he was winning until the angel crippled him.
Well, now we have to talk about Vayasar. What is that verb? We understand it. I mean, it sure looks a lot like Sarah, but it's not vocalized like Sarah. If it was Sarah, we would expect something like Vayaser, or
Well, again,
maybe
I'm not
even
taking the vowels
Vayesre.
as...
I understand that, but
Yeah, okay.
this is what we have. And importantly, we actually have this identical form. This is actually a verb in this identical form that appears in the Hebrew Bible. In Judges 9:22, you have Vayasar. It's from the root sarar, and it means to rule. And is this with reference to Jacob? What's common? What's common
A
in
kav,
Hebrew?
wordplay.
Yes, it's very clearly wordplay, which should also make us think that maybe this is not Sarah. Maybe this is Sarar. And
Yeah.
the convention within Hebrew sentence structure is verb, subject, object. You start with a verb, which means that we might expect a subject next, which would suggest that maybe the subject of Vayasar is El Malach, either El or Malach. I mean, this is where Hamorti comes down on this point to say that she thinks this is the corruption, that Malach was a gloss, and that it originally probably just read El. So maybe this is, in his strength, Jacob fought with a god, with Elohim, and El ruled, prevailed, and overcame, which kind of helps to make sense of the next line. He wept and implored him, Jacob, and then he finds him at Bethel. There he speaks to him. So
I'm taking a different tack. Because
right,
I'm reading this as like, in the belly, you have a verb et something. So tricked at his brother. And then you have the next line. Okay. You know, you have Sarah et Elohim. So this is talking about Jacob, right? In the belly tricked his brother, talking about Esau. In his strength, he fought with a god, or god, the gods, whatever. And then there's another parallel. And he overcame him because he was weeping and going, bless me, bless me. He's weeping and imploring him, bless me. I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. Obviously, in the original narrative, the angel cheated and knocked his hip out of socket.
Yes.
And Jacob found him at Bethel. And he spoke with the deity. To me, personally, this is all referencing Jacob. And just, again, that's my personal reading. I don't require that, but to me, it tracks more consistently that way, but whatever.
Yes. So I think, I don't feel particularly strongly one way or the other about this. I just want to point out that there's major issues with this text. But also something else that Hamorti mentions, which I think has some traction here too, is that we shouldn't expect that the Genesis story is, the quote unquote is exactly what Hosea has in front of them too, right? It's exactly.
I'm digging it.
We might not actually understand the original usage. I think that's fair. I also kind of like to think that that if Al Malach is original and it's not a corruption, then the best thing to do with that is just to leave it. You guys remember the last stream that we had with Justin Sledge? Dr. Sledge said something I think was very important. I think it's spot on. when he said we just don't leave enough things. We should leave more things
Yeah.
untranslated. I think this is one
Yeah.
of these instances when we should be doing that. So yeah. So Hosea 12 is kind of fun, and you can't use Hosea 12 to talk about the angel of Yahweh, the angel of the Lord, because that's not what's here in this text. At best, you've either got a god or you've got this El Malak that we don't understand, but you certainly don't have a Malach Adonai or a Malach Elohim. That's what's not there. All right. We need to wrap this up soon, but I did want to. So he's got one more section in his video where he talks about the Targumim, and I wanted to say something about that before we wrap.
Oh,
up.
brother, is he going to butcher it?
Yes, he is.
About the Otto David Wood debate, I mentioned about Targums. Targums were Old Testament translations into Aramaic. And one thing that's fascinating about the Targums is they do a little bit like what Hosea did when he read Genesis. Remember, Hosea is reading about Jacob wrestling with the Lord. And Jacob is thinking, well, you can't wrestle with God Most High. So who is Jacob wrestling with? And
how about that? I love it. But also, yeah, the Targumim, they weren't just translations. There's a little bit of paraphrasing and commentary going on too.
Yeah. He's actually going to get that part right. So.
Okay, cool. All right. I'm here for it.
Hosea articulates in Hosea 12, he's wrestling with the angel whose name is the Lord. The Targums do similar things like that throughout their translations of the Old Testament. And when they're translating from Hebrew into Aramaic, sometimes they just add the word, the memra in Aramaic, the memra of God, when they are clear that whoever this God is that the text is speaking
about. Oh my goodness. Hang on. One in Messiah congregation. Are these messianics? Are they messy antics?
Do you think so? Great source, Glenn.
I love that you're stating a website that looks like it was made with GeoCities, because people are not qualified academically to discuss these texts have the worst website design. Random highlights, random bold letters, random changes of color. There's, oh man, woo! It's GeoCities Angel Fire.
It really is, aesthetic. Isn't it? Yeah. Listen, no shade, my guy. I know we're just all out here doing the best we can and trying to find the best sources we can. But my God, you could do so much better. There's so much more available, credible resources out there than the one in Messiah congregation. Broadcasting from America Online in 1992, right? Like it's true. But let's hear what he has to say. Are you looking?
Whoever this God is that the text is speaking about, he can't be God Most High. He must be the Word of the Lord. He must be this divine mediator. And so in Genesis chapter 16, when Hagar sees the angel of the Lord, the Targum says that she saw the Word of the Lord. So Old Testament believers are seeing the sent one of the Lord and the Word of the Lord as kind of synonyms. These are two titles for the same person. In the Jerusalem Targum, it says Hagar returned thanks and prayed in the name of the Word of the Lord who had appeared.
Pause it for a second. Are you confused by the Jerusalem Targum? Because I was.
I am. What is he talking about?
He's talking about pseudo Jonathan. Or sorry, Jonathan.
What?
Yeah.
What?
It's called the Jerusalem Targum.
Why would
Did you know that? I don't know why you would call that. Sorry, no, I was right. It is pseudo Jonathan. It's pseudo Jonathan. And he's calling it the Jerusalem Targum for some reason. I've never heard it called that anywhere.
Today is the first time I've seen that happen.
I had to ask Google about that. So, yeah. Anyways, Jerusalem.
Okay.
To her. Okay. Remember, she calls the angel of the Lord the God who sees me. I've now seen the one who sees me. He's clearly this mediating Lord. And Old Testament.
The only reason he's quoting this is because it backs up his predetermined dogma. We all know this. If it didn't say this, he wouldn't even know what a Targum is.
Believers, BC, with their own conceptuality, figuring out, okay, this is the divine mediator. This is not God Most High, but the angel of the Lord is the word.
Wait, I'm sorry. Believers? BC?
BC.
What is he? Believers. Before Christianity was even a thing. Believers? Are you kidding me with
we've
this?
got 23 seconds.
Okay.
We could
Word of the
finish.
Lord. Remember in Exodus 3, the God of the burning bush is the angel of the Lord, the one who says, I am who I am. In the Jerusalem Targum for Exodus 3, verse 14, it specifies that whoever is speaking is the word of the Lord, who says, I am who I am. So who is the I am who I am? He is the word of the Lord, who is also the angel of the Lord. None of this is a New Testament novelty. All of this is BC.
Oh, okay.
He is
All
the
of
Lord,
it.
who is also the angel of the Lord. None of this is a New Testament novelty.
Yay. Why doesn't this pause when I tell it to?
Are you trying to get back to what this here? Yes. Okay.
All right, man.
You got
Rabbi Tzvi Nasi cites the Jerusalem Targum. What? These people. People just get on the internet and say shit.
They just do. They just do.
Also, thank you, Simone. Targum Pseudo Jonathan is not early.
Yes, we are getting to that. Thank you, Simone.
Okay.
Because it's important how he concludes this. I hope you heard it, and we're gonna hear it again because I think it's important to hear him again make his point. Are you done? Are you
None
done
of this
with
is a New
that?
Testament novelty. All of this is BC.
All of this
No.
is
no.
BC.
Nah.
It really isn't. So,
nope.
The earliest. So we have Aramaic translations of the Hebrew Bible texts in the Dead Sea Scrolls. You can't really call them targums. And lots, and they differ fairly dramatically from what we from the Targum meme that we have, that Onkelos, Neophiti, Pseudo Jonathan, the fragmentary Targum. The ones that we have, they do differ rather significantly in that they are like much more proper, quite literal translations of the Hebrew text into Aramaic. And then we have these other Aramaic, like something like the Genesis Apocryphon, right? An Aramaic paraphrase of probably the book of Genesis, or a substantial portion of the book of Genesis, but it doesn't really follow precisely the same sort of exegetical convention as what appears in the Targum. So the very earliest Targum we have is Onkelos, and Onkelos dates to sometime before 200 CE, 200 in the Common Era, but also probably not earlier than 100. In fact, there's plenty of good historical reasons to see a lot of this as coming out of the Second Jewish Revolt in the 130s. So, no, this is not BC. This is post. This is already kind of on nascent post temple Judaism. This is not it's late. Onkelos is the best that the earliest that you can get. But importantly, so he showed a couple of texts there, or mentioned a couple of texts. He mentioned Genesis 16 and Exodus 3, and talked about how the Targums identify the angel of Yahweh as the Memra. So importantly, Onkelos doesn't do that in those texts. Now, Onkelos does use the Memra concept However, a lot of times that Onkelos uses the memra concept, it's certainly more vague in terms of what the translator is doing than in Pseudo Jonathan, certainly. But like, for example, 23:21, Exodus 23:21, where it says that the angel of Yahweh has the name of Yahweh in him. Targum Onkelos says it like this. It says, "Be cautious before him and heed memra." Now, heed this figure. Does it mean that, or does it mean heed his word? Do not rebel against him, for he will forgive your misdeeds, because, again, memra is in my name. So, like, is that it's fuzzy, right? It's not as precise or clear, identifying the memra as this almost like this separate this being through whom Yahweh, God, more readily mediates. So and then importantly, Targums Neophedia and Pseudo Jonathan were written in the 3rd century, or maybe even the 4th
Well, that's
century,
inconvenient.
isn't it? And by this time, we have a much more consistently interpreted form of text, like Genesis 16 and Exodus 3, which is what he's citing. This is the Jerusalem Targum, is Pseudo Jonathan. So on the whole, I don't think the Targums help you. I'll just say that in terms of trying to identify what Second Temple Jews and earlier readers of these texts were thinking regarding the angel of Yahweh, the Malach Adonai. So it just, so it's not, I hope everybody is satisfied that yes, I am. Hi Pesha, Stan, hope you must have missed the beginning of my stream where I showed off my my brand new Ghost t-shirt. It's pretty great, right? And it's purple, which is pretty great. So
Oh yeah.
it's I hope everyone is sufficiently convinced that the angel of the Lord is not Jesus. And I hope everyone can see that appearances of the Malach Adonai in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Bible, are almost always much more generically applied to divine beings than we understand through our English translations. And I really hope everyone can appreciate that when it comes to the individual texts which deal with the Malach Adonai, we can't flatten them into this consistent picture of what all the writers thought this figure was and what they were doing. We see that there's a more consistent pattern of what's taking place in Genesis and Exodus that's fairly distinct from what the author of the book of Judges is doing. We saw that Malach Adonai is actually just the only way the author of Genesis certainly seems to be referring to divine messengers from the court of the gods. It seems to be similarly taking place in the book of Exodus. Whereas in the book of Judges, this figure is part of the narrative arc within this story, plays a role that helps to structure the entire the entire rhetorical pace of the book of Judges. And we've seen that there are writers in the Hebrew Bible that just have no interest in the Malach Adonai at all. It does not appear anywhere in Numbers outside of Numbers chapter 22, which already has a complicated textual history on its own, which most scholars will tell you is maybe coming from outside a lot of these other traditions. It's not in the book of Leviticus. There's no angel of Yahweh in the book of Deuteronomy. There's nothing in the book of Joshua. The book of Psalms treats the angel of Yahweh as just an angel from the court of Yahweh.
Doing his job.
He's not in Hosea at all. This is probably a textual corruption. It's a very old text. We clearly don't have a good understanding of it. So people, I guess my message, if Glen Scrivener, if you ever watch this, I guess I just want to say to you, first of all, thank you for calling out David Wood on his rank bigotry. I appreciated that. But also, I think I would just want to say that when it comes to reading the Hebrew Bible, we need to do it really carefully. And we can't just pretend that the right answers are in the Gospel of John. Because they're not. So I think I'm done.
I just want to, I hate taking up airtime for this, but are the coincidence between, he later corrects it to Jesus and Esau in the Masoretic text regarding letters? What are you talking about? Jesus is not in the Masoretic text. I don't understand. He says Jews, I guess that's Jesus, but what are we doing? I don't. Okay, John says a lot of things that don't make any sense at all to me, but I don't do stuff like this with, oh, well, that sounds like, or that kind of matches, or this sort, like, I don't do that. And if you're like, but they equal each other in the gematria, I don't care, because the people who wrote these texts weren't doing gematria when they wrote it. So, have fun with it, but
Redim's being helpful here, Vish.
Redim.
I know where the right answers are in Genesis.
Okay.
Man. It's almost 3 hours. It's almost 5 o'clock in like literally minutes. So we're gonna shut it down. Thanks everyone for coming and hanging out. And I had fun. I haven't done a teaching stream for a while, so I guess my birthday stream was kind of a teaching stream, but teaching/video response stream. I haven't done one of those in a little while, so this was fun. I appreciate that everyone came out and chilled. And most people were chill. What's going on with you, Vish? Coming up?
Chrissy Hansen and I are teaming up to do a series on anti-Semitic tropes, the history of them, what they are and where they came from, and how they remain very much present in the modern era. And not enough people are educated enough to recognize them, because sometimes they are subtle in dog whistle form. So we're going to be talking about a lot of those and hopefully equipping people to recognize them more often so that they can combat them. Because we don't like spreading bigotry or stereotypes. We like pluralism and welcoming people as they are. So
yeah, we do.
Yeah. That'll be coming shortly, maybe within the next few weeks. We had to take a break because Chrissy had some... had like injured her voice, so she had to let that rest first. So we're kind of in the drafting up the scripts and pulling in all the different papers and research elements for that. So yeah, once we get it cooking, it'll be there.
Excellent. And then you and I are going to be back on Dapper's channel tomorrow afternoon.
Yes.
At noon Pacific. Also apparently noon in
Bodie Hodges' nonsense Arizona. About the Tower of Babylon languages.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if this is ever going to end at this point. It
seems like it's never going to be over, but Bodie just keeps writing ridiculous nonsense.
It's true. It's true. So come check it out tomorrow on Dapper's channel. I will be doing not I won't be doing it tomorrow, but there will be another budget scripture Saturday drunken late night live stream in your future. Probably
In my
next
future.
weekend. Will it be in your future?
Or the
Vish?
audience's
It might be.
future.
In the audience's future. But I did want to say also that I am encroaching upon the 20,000 subscriber mark
Oh yeah.
on my channel, and that we will be doing something special. So probably at the end of the month, keep your eyes open. I plan on having a whole bunch of friends on, which will be fun. So I think that's it. I think we're done, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
everyone,
Anything else
I
for
just
the stream?
I just really appreciate y'all coming out and hanging out with us. I'm happy to Bitcore knows what's going on. I think we're ready. We're ready for the benediction here, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Yes.
Have a great evening. And until I see you next time, Hatikva.